Did you get Uber?
That was really good.
Look at what?
Oh, please lean back. Taking
Yes.
All right, good afternoon. And we are start the constitutional budget, and Mr. Hunsaker.
Madam Chair, members of the board, this afternoon is voted to hearing from the Chief Judge and the constitutional officers about issues within the judiciary and within the individual operations of the constitutional officers within the county. So I would suggest that you would start off with hearing from the Chief Judge and move on from there.
A certain page, we're not.
If you went to the
Look on your
tab,
tab, the day's date,
June 6th.
6.
Sorry. The Chief Judge's letter is on page 4.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. We appreciate the opportunity to address you. We always work as a team, so this is going to be sort of a team presentation. And we're going to actually have our court administrator, Walt Smith, get started. And then we'll have Dana Yon, who's our guardianship monitor, give a brief presentation. And then I'll say a few things, but we will definitely be out of here within our allotted time, so don't worry about that. So we'll start with Walt Smith.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Commissioners, Mr. Hunsaker, Ms. Brewer. We wanted to start, I don't know if we've got, I guess we don't have the PowerPoint up.
There it is.
It's up, okay,
And I'm going to run it, Walt.
okay.
We have a handout, I think.
Waiting for our technology.
Here it is.
Yeah. As you know, we're the 12th Circuit Court. We run the court system in Manatee County and Sarasota County and DeSoto County. Our judges, we have 15 judges assigned in Manatee County. They're split between circuit judges and county judges. So we're here to talk today about drug court, slightly court technology services, and most importantly, ask you again to fund a guardianship monitor. In the for the drug court funding, all we're really asking you is to, this year you agreed to make sure that the shortfall in the grant funding was covered. And that's essentially all we're asking you to do this year is make the same promise. And I think that we never know what the grant's going to be. It could be more, it could be less. And we're just trying to make sure that we have enough counselors to do the work and keep people going in drug court. We did the proclamation, a few weeks ago, and you heard about some of the benefits of drug court, and it's a great program. We did have a request for increased drug testing that we're withdrawing because we worked that out, so we should be good on that. Court technology services, this is really just the second year of a 2-year cycle. The court technology is funded by a fee that's generated by the per page rate at filings at the clerk's office. So there's a revenue fee that comes in. We're asking for the second year of a 2-year project to replace some of the equipment in the courtrooms. The second year of our Microsoft enterprise agreement to fund the software, Word and Excel and Outlook that we use and everybody else's use. The operating funds of $30,000 for our kind of the day-to-day normal IT purchases and our normal yearly PC replacement of $25,000. If you agree to all of those, we're still $100,000 less than we are asking for in this fiscal year and what we got in this fiscal year. The major thing we're here to ask for is a guardianship monitor, and we asked you all last year for a guardianship monitor, and we all understand that there are competing interests, but we're here again because we really believe that this position would provide a unbelievably fantastic service to the needs of the community here. Guardians who are appointed by the court for wards, and wards are the people that we've taken away all of their rights, the right to vote, the right to make financial decisions, the rights to do anything for themselves, and we appoint a guardian. The guardians are largely unsupervised. They can be family members, they can be professional guardians. Sometimes when they're family members, they fight over things, and you'll hear a couple of cases that we're going to talk to you about. But the guardianship monitor helps the court take a more active role in monitoring these cases. We can't have Judge Williams running out to nursing homes all the time and checking on the wards in the nursing homes. And this allows us to have somebody who does that, who responds to complaints when the daughter who lives in Ohio calls and says, I'm worried that mom's not being cared for, dad's not being cared for. We can go out, we can investigate, we can come back as part of the court system and bring that right back to the judge, hold a hearing, get things straightened out, and sort of get the ward back into the best place possible. So the other issue becomes fees and costs in these cases because the guardian is authorized to spend whatever amount of the ward's money that he feels or she feels is necessary to take care of the ward. And again, when that's not supervised, that can become a problem sometimes. The majority cases, there's not a huge problem, but there are cases that we would all be appalled by. But Judge Williams really knows the guardianship from a court's perspective and wanted to let him talk about that a little bit more.
And again, I know that I have forwarded to you a letter of request. Also, you may or may not have noticed that there was an op-ed piece in the Braden Herald that I authored requesting that the County Commission give serious consideration for this. I can talk about the legal technicalities and I can talk about the statutes, but I want to talk to you more on a basic level because there's a lot of misconceptions about guardianships. There's a lot of misconceptions about what the court can do. And so we have to sort of look at this not at the legal level so much as the humanitarian level. When we came before you last time and requested a guardianship monitor, we knew conceptually what that would look like. But after having a couple of years to really reflect on the success that we have had with the guardianship monitor in Sarasota and the success that they're having already in Charlotte County, I think it's important I thought it was very important for me to come back and explain to you on a humanitarian level why this is so important. Right now, the court supervises about 500 guardianship cases. And I think the misconception is that the court is involved in those cases on a daily basis. Actually, the only requirement in these cases is that the guardian file an annual report. So once a year, they'll file a report. That report will sort of, in about a 2 or 3 page document, update the court, actually update the clerk's office on the progress, whether or not things have been done pursuant to the statutory calendar. But what these reports don't do, and what these reports can't do, is actually look at the ward and talk to the ward and see where the ward is, physically and mentally, and report back to me. As I get older, I get more and more concerned about this because if we are fortunate enough to live long enough, someone's going to have to look after us. And so the court technically looks after these 500 Manatee County citizens, but quite frankly, the court has no way, without a guardianship monitor, of going out there and laying eyes and ears, and that's what we call it, the eyes and ears of the court, to make certain that the ward is doing fine. Now, don't let me be overly dramatic, because sometimes it's a simple situation. And the typical situation is that somehow it comes to the court's attention or the guardianship monitor's attention that the ward is in some sort of discomfort. Sometimes that's serious discomfort, but sometimes it's something as simple as the ward wants to go home. The ward's tired of living at the place that they're living. We've had requests that the ward's been denied the opportunity to watch television, right, or listen to a radio. Those things do not come in front of the court on a regular basis in Manatee County because we have no way of really verifying that. And so in a humanitarian sense, we have to look at not just the statutory requirements of what a guardianship does, but the humanitarian part. Do we really want someone to be alone and not have an advocate that can come before the court and say, hey, you know what? I know it's not a big deal, but I really, really would like to watch television, or I really, really would like my radio back, or I really, really would like to play cards. I'm being denied that. So on that basic level, that's really what a guardianship monitor does, to make sure that the ward is comfortable. Now, sometimes we have found mismanagement. Sometimes we have found that funds that should have gone to the benefit of the ward are being diverted by the guardian. And so even though we have that great word guardian, many times the guardian is taking advantage of the ward. We really have no way of knowing that, really. So the purpose of the guardianship monitor for me as the guardianship judge is for me to be able to say, look, if I hear about a problem or I suspect a problem, I'm not just going to have to rely on paperwork. I'm actually going to be able to rely on someone reporting back to me that, hey, I've been there. I've seen where the ward lives, and let me tell you, this is what I'm concerned about. And so that's basically it on a humanitarian level. We've gotten a lot of good publicity about this, and good publicity isn't meaning that we're really happy and patting ourselves on the back, but I think it acknowledges that the public really acknowledges the fact that we have something in place in the courts to look after the most vulnerable people that the courts have to oversee. And so Charlotte County heard about our program. They came up, they observed, they shadowed Dana, who you'll hear from in a few moments, and they have implemented that program down there, really with the same basic humanitarian purpose. So we have identified a few cases, and I'm not going to go through them, but these are some of the cases that are in Manatee County that we would love to be able to give you a more detailed picture, but because we don't have a guardianship monitor, we've sort of had to really sort of do this ourselves and try to give you an idea of these are the types of cases that are here in Manatee County that a guardianship monitor will be helpful. And this sort of gives you an overview of what guardianships look after. The first case, there's a ward by the name of Benny. He's 76 years old. And many of these cases, I would say the vast majority of them involve issues of dementia and Alzheimer's. But this is an individual who was relocated to Manatee County by his 2 children who also served as his co-guardians. Benny wants to have his rights restored, okay? But in the process of that, what we have discovered is that there's some financial impropriety that's going on. So we have to be able to have someone really investigate that. What the court normally relies upon are the guardians, right? So in this particular case, we have a guardian that we have discovered has some issues. But the reason that we are able to discover this is because we're advocating getting a guardianship monitor, so we actually kind of use the guardianship monitor process to find this type of impropriety that's going on. We don't have a mechanism in place. And so of the 497 or 500 wards, we were very fortunate to find this particular situation in preparation for this day, to let you know that this is not an atypical situation. This happens all the time. And we have to have a mechanism in place so that we can make certain that it doesn't happen to any of the other guardians and wards in this county. The next case involves a Manatee County resident by the name of Jim. Again, suffers from dementia. There's a lot of infighting between the siblings because the normal situation when there's infighting is that the siblings can't agree how mom or dad or grandpa or grandma should be treated. So there's a lot of infighting. And so there's issues of visitation and communication. And so a guardianship monitor in that situation would be able to sort of act as sort of a mediator, to report back to the court, is this something that the court needs to intervene in? Do we need to bring these people in the court to try to make life a lot more comfortable for Jim? Again, currently, we have no mechanism for doing that. Again, another misconception about guardianships is that they involve the elderly and the people with dementia and Alzheimer's, but it also involves people with physical disabilities. So the next Manatee County resident, someone by the name of Sam, is a typical situation when we have young wards. He's 14 years old. He suffers from a developmental disability. He's unable to communicate and express his needs. And so these are the types of individuals that need guardianship monitors almost more than anyone. So what we do in Sarasota and what they do in Charlotte is that we have set up a routine in which at least once a year, the guardianship monitor will go out and physically look at the ward, listen to the ward, and make certain that the ward is doing okay. We don't have that mechanism here in Manatee County. So we now know that if we can get a mechanism like that, as Sam progresses, and it's more than likely he will be under a guardianship probably the rest of his life, we have some assurance that someone is looking out for his interests and it's being brought to the court's attention on a regular basis. Again, another example, and the last example I will give you of another Manatee County resident is Leroy. He's an 84-year-old veteran. His incapacity is a seizure disorder. His next of kin are located out of state, which is a common occurrence. Again, there appears to be some issues involving his financial situation and exploitation. We also found that he's living in a situation in which his home needs repairs, he's being neglected. Again, because we were preparing for this, we were able to pull that particular case out. But currently, the guardianship judge here in Manatee County has no mechanism for having an employee of the court or someone under the supervision of the court go out there and personally check on him. So at this time, just giving you that humanitarian background, I'd like to bring up Dana Yon, who's our guardianship monitor in Sarasota, and she'll tell you a little bit more in detail about the program. Dana?
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon. Since Judge has already provided a detailed explanation of...
Could you please state your name so we have it for the
Absolutely.
record?
My name is Dana Yon.
Thank you.
I'm the guardianship monitor for Sarasota County. So the guardianship monitor's duties for the court would include supplementing the auditing process that the clerk of court performs as part of their statutory duties, and that would include the annual plans and annual accountings. So independently reviewing the guardianship cases to make certain that the best interests of the ward is being met. Advising the court on a regular basis, and we'll go through the system that we do as far as informing the court through phone conversation logs and status reviews. And serving as a clearinghouse for complaints, requests, or inquiries regarding the ward. So how does a guardianship monitor investigate a case? It can be a result of a complaint by an outside party, it can be a next of kin, it could be an agency, through the clerk of court, through a letter or anonymous complaint, through the court, and also by a recommendation of the guardianship monitor after thoroughly reviewing a case. So the circuit has developed a system for investigating guardianships and includes a guardianship monitoring report, a phone conversation log, checklist, as well as actually having a court hearing. So a guardianship monitoring report is basically a 7 to 10 page report that they go over specific information regarding a ward, but the guardianship monitor is not able to do that without the court appointing the guardianship monitor in a formal order. And this order will be taken to a facility such as a hospital, an assisted living facility, and presented to the staff so that the guardianship monitor can have easy access to the ward. So I will not go over this in detail, but this is the information that is comprised of a guardianship monitoring report. The investigations, on average, can take 2 to 3 hours in length, so you can see it's very detailed of what's included in a report. And all investigations are unscheduled, so if I'm going to a residence, they don't know that I'm coming. If I'm going to an assisted living facility or a hospital, they don't know that I'm coming. So for tracking and organizing phone calls, so say if you get a phone call from a next of kin or an agency, the guardianship monitor would track the phone call, write out a detailed explanation of what the person's concerns is, give that information over to the court for review, and is also filed with the clerk of court. So a guardianship monitoring checklist, the guardianship monitor would thoroughly review the case and to inform the court in a more formal procedure of what's the current status of that case. And this is done on a 60-day review as well as an annual review. And I want to turn it over back to Judge Williams so he can explain, a guardianship case review in a court setting.
Prior to the guardianship monitor, whenever these guardianships would be established, in theory, the ward or the alleged incapacitated person would have an attorney to represent them for a 60-day period. However, that 60-day period would expire, and then at that point, the ward has no representation. It's ironic that the guardian has representation because they have an attorney, but the ward has no representation. So one of the first things that we looked at is to make certain that we do not let the attorney, quote unquote, off the hook at the 60-day mark without making certain that the ward is doing okay. And then the guardianship monitor does that for the court. We didn't have that before. So that 60-day window is very important because if we find out that something isn't right, the attorney is not released from representing the ward. So it's important that we have that initial 60-day review that's done by the guardianship monitor. There's nothing in the statute that really tells the court what to do during that 60-day period, except that after the 60 days elapse, there's no representation for the ward. So I think it's important that you understand that. And so after that 60-day review, on an annual basis, Dana or whoever the guardianship monitor is will go out, again, be the eyes and ears of the court, and be able to report back to the court, verbally and in writing, and a part of the court file, how that ward is doing. So that'll be done on an annual basis. So many of these guardianships have existed in Manatee County for 20, 30, I think the oldest one is almost 50 years old. And so prior to a guardianship monitor in Sarasota County, once the court made the initial guardianship, they never saw the ward again, right? So all you rely upon is basically the guardian saying, trust us, Judge, everything's going great. So now we have something in place in Sarasota, and they have it in Charlotte, where we don't just take the word of the guardian. The court actually has the mechanism now of going out on a regular basis, once a year, to make certain that the ward is doing everything that needs to be done in terms of their personal, the guardian is doing everything that needs to be done, and the ward is comfortable and has a quality of life. And so we do have some statistics. I'm going to have Dana talk to you a little bit about those.
So since the guardianship monitoring position has been implemented in Sarasota, we have generated statistics from day one. So the number of court orders that were signed by Judge Williams to appoint the guardianship monitor is 258 orders. The number of completed guardianship reports, as you saw, we provided you a sample of what the detailed report looked like. 185 guardianship monitoring reports have been submitted to the court. As far as checklists to make sure that the guardians are filing their annual plans, their annual accountings, making sure that no cases get left behind. When we first started, we started from case starting in 1983 to 2015, and 598 checklists were submitted to the court, and the case was thoroughly reviewed. Going forward from cases starting in 2016 to current, 244 checklists have been submitted to the court. And with the guardianship monitor's involvement in a case, 5 individuals' rights have been restored after a guardianship monitoring report was submitted to the court.
Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. That final statistic, the restoration of rights, that's very important. As you know from reading the background information, there's very few things in the world that can strip you of your rights more so than a guardianship. Right? Everything from the right to socialize with who you want, a right to live where you want, a right to vote. As soon as those guardianship papers are signed, those rights are stripped away from you. So without a guardianship monitor, you rely upon the guardian to let the court know that, hey, you know what? Maybe the person now is able to exercise some of those rights. Well, instead of relying on the guardian to let the court know, the guardianship monitor can also now advise the court that certain people seem to have their capacity restored, at least in certain areas. I mean, sometimes I have allowed limited capacity so that someone could marry somebody they want. Maybe they don't have the ability to control their finances, but they certainly have the ability to decide who they wish to be with. So without a guardianship monitor, these guardianships can go on for years and years and years without the court actually being aware that the person really doesn't need a guardianship, or at least can have some partial restoration of the rights. So, in fact, one of the hearings that I had today was a restoration of rights, in which now the guardian has indicated, based on the guardianship monitor's involvement, brought to the court's attention, that rights can be restored to this particular ward. So after being in a guardianship for 8 years, today, those rights have been restored. So those are the types of services that Manatee County citizens deserve, I think. And this is the type of thing that guardianship monitors can make certain, that we have people who are under guardianships who actually need to be under guardianships.
So the typical setting for a guardianship investigation, as you can see here in the diagram, out of that 185 guardianship monitoring reports that were submitted to the court, 119 of those investigations were completed at an assisted living facility. And a second highest number, 45 investigations were completed at a residence or a group home setting. So as you can see, most of the guardianships are in an assisted living facility, a skilled nursing facility, a memory care unit, and that's where most of the attention is, as far as conducting an investigation.
Okay, and if we pull up the last slide, and then in terms of the cost, I'll leave that to our court administrator, Walt. But in summation, I started off by saying this is really a plea to humanity. We want to make certain that the wards in this county, the almost 500 of them, have a quality of life. The good news is that for the most part they do. And the good news is for the most part guardians do a pretty good job. But there are wards out there that are sitting in assisted living facilities or sitting in private homes that have no way of coming back to the court and say, Judge, you know what? I really don't like it here. I'm really not happy here. All I want is a television. They won't give it to me. All I want is a radio. They won't let me listen to one. All I want is to talk to some friends, and they won't let those friends come over. That's the humanitarian part that we have to address. The legal part is easy enough. We can make certain that the paperwork is filed on time on an annual basis. We can make certain that the guardianship is set up legally. We can do that without a guardianship monitor. But I cannot, and the judge in Manatee County cannot, go over to that assisted living facility, go over to that home, sit down with the ward, like what Dana does, talk to them, have a meaningful conversation, have a meaningful relationship, and report back to the court, Judge, I've met with Miss So-and-so, she's doing fine. Or Judge, I've met with Miss So-and-so, and we need to intervene. We need to take a look at what's happening with her. She's not happy. She's depressed. There's something going on. And so we bring those parties back in the court for the sole purpose of making certain that the ward is doing fine. And really, that's what it's all about. One of the functions of government, one of the functions of the judiciary is to make certain that its least able citizens are being looked after. And that's what a guardianship monitor does. So with that, I'll turn it over to Walt, who can talk to you about specifics in terms of the costs.
Yeah, thank you. Essentially, the cost of a guardianship monitor is a $40,000 a year salary plus benefits and about $1,000 of travel money associated with that, so that they can travel around and get paid for their travel time to the nursing homes and the residents and things like that. So it's not hugely expensive, and we have not asked for any new positions from Manatee County over the last, well, we have asked for it. We haven't gotten any. We asked last year. We haven't gotten any new positions from Manatee County since we got the drug court positions 9 years ago. So it's not like we're up here saying we need more of this and we need more of that and things like that. We really believe that this is something that's needed in Manatee County, and we hope that you'll give it some consideration. So thank you very much.
I'm actually first on the board. I'd like to flag this.
Second.
Okay. Carol?
I have a few questions. Well, maybe the judge can help me. I work in elder care and senior care every week. I work at a home health company. I go in all the SNFs and the ALFs and homes and hospitals. And I know that the state visits at random, and there's an organization that is trained by the state, and they go into all the nursing homes, ALFs. Pat Glass, who I visited last Thursday, had somebody from the state come and question her the other day. So, to me, I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that, because there are some eyes and ears in those facilities, and there's a high number of people in there. So, and I'm sure you're aware of that, right?
Right.
Yeah, I'm aware of it, and without commenting on the effectiveness of it, without saying that, quite frankly, I think that it's a CYA for the state to say that they are actually taking care of the ward and taking care of the facility. We don't think that those inspections go far enough. No. What we see is basically an announced visit. And that's lucky enough if the ward is staying at an ALF. You got to remember, many of these wards live in homes.
Right, I know.
And many of these wards live in group homes, or they live in places where this inspection won't occur. But I can tell you that all of the cases that we cited, where was the inspector there? That we're now having to investigate because we've actually looked into it, getting prepared for this hearing. So I do realize that the state does have that function, but quite frankly, I don't think it's effective.
I have a few more.
Sure.
So you may want to both stay there. I know also and I can't remember, there's one law firm that's been doing it for years, but there's others that are the powers of attorney to a lot of the wards, as you call them. And you have a monitor, a person that monitors them. So what authority do they have over these people that are appointed guardians? Do you know? I know you would.
Well, actually, the court has the ultimate authority. The guardianship monitor basically is an extension of the court. Once the guardianship is under my jurisdiction, basically, the guardianship judge is the czar. And so even though there's a power of attorney, most guardianships, when they're implemented, take away the power of attorney. And basically, the guardian has sole control over those decisions. So even those types of situations, the court ultimately has the authority.
There also, when these people are appointed wards of the court and they have a guardian, do they go before the court and get that?
Yes, they petition the court for the guardian, but rarely is the ward present when that
Right.
occurs.
I have a question, though. I'm trying to think of a way to fund it. And I don't even know. Is there a way that there's something in your system, because I'm also been involved in elder abuse and stuff, and animal and elder abuse on this, but is there a way that with this process, that there's a way that there's a fee that could be tacked onto these people that could help defray some of the costs for this position? I mean, why, or in your fines on certain elder abuse cases and on your people when they applied to be a guardian, is there a way that you can do that legally? I don't know.
I don't think I have the authority, but Walt
Yeah.
would be more of an expert on that.
I think that would be something the legislature would have to pass to allow that to occur.
I mean, right now, as you know, probably, there's a brain injury fund that every physician, when they apply for the license, have to pay $250 for brain injuries. And that goes to care for brain injuries. Maybe that's something that we can actually look at for the whole state. I mean, you're absolutely right. I see bed sores. There's no reason for a bed sore if that person's being taken care of and stuff like that. So I get it. I was just trying to figure out a creative way to help fund it. And maybe this is something we could all work together to do this statewide. I mean,
Yeah,
this is.
we're happy. We've had other jurisdictions contact us and say, can you send us the forms you're using? What do you have this person do? It's, the state barely funded this
Right.
organization to go do that, and it's kind of like, we have 3 people that do all this across the state. I mean, it's not adequate. It's not. So, yeah, there may be a way to identify pieces of existing fines and fees and direct them towards something like this, but again, it would have to be the legislature.
And would the person that just spoke to us, would she be doing all 3 counties, or how
No,
would this?
she'd just be in Manatee. Well, she's in Sarasota,
Right.
Dana.
And you would hire a position?
Again, when you saw some of those numbers, 500 wards in Manatee County, for us to do everybody who's coming through initially within that 60 days. And then you have the majority of them that are beyond that 60-day mark. You've got to start to work backwards and do the annual reviews and then work backwards on the rest. So it just takes a lot of time to get caught up. And then we're getting constant calls from people that are concerned now that we have this. And can you look at my grandfather? Can you look at my grandmother? She doesn't need to be in a nursing home. You know, she can be in an assisted living facility. And I don't know why the guardian put her in a nursing home. And, you know, she doesn't deserve to be there. They're just people sitting around in wheelchairs and, you know, you hear this all the time. We go and investigate. So those are not on any kind of scheduled basis. Those are in response to requests from the citizens. We have a hotline that we take calls. You don't even have to give your name. It can be anonymous. We'll go investigate the ward's case.
So do you think once a year is enough? Because I mean, I'm, you know, an elderly person that gets deconditioned and.
Well, here's the,
But let's
Once a
remember,
year.
hey, let's just remember, this is a budget.
No, I know it is, but I'm trying to figure out a way to fund it, and if
I
we're
get
gonna
that,
put
but I
this
mean,
on
whether it's once a year or something, that's not today's discussion.
on a potential platform for funding budget purposes, and then we got to decide how we're going to do it this time. I'm just asking those questions because you all need to know this, because
well, here's the good news is that the majority of them are in great shape. Most people want to take care of their elderly parents, and that most people want to take care of relatives who have dementia or physical disabilities. So if Dana comes across a case that does need extra attention, then no, we don't have to say once a year. I've directed Dana to check on a ward on a monthly basis. I've asked her to check on a ward every 3 or 4 months because there was a promise, again, to have something done within that period of time. And so we can double check now. So we're not tied into the one, that's the goal.
that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Ball.
Yeah, let me tell y'all something. We're only talking probably $45,000 total with benefits for the year for this person. And I'll guarantee you, if we had one in Manatee County, my brother would probably be alive today. And he died 2 days before Christmas. You got my vote.
Sorry.
Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have just two questions. Is this something you asked from the state of Florida and they didn't fund it, or?
The state doesn't have this kind of position in their repertoire right now.
Okay.
So we've sort of, comes under that court innovation fund that the counties are responsible for. The state could do it if they wanted to. They should. They're not. So we're more concerned about helping our local communities and not worrying about what Tallahassee does, quite honestly. You know, we'll keep trying and.
So the 41,000 that you're requesting, that would take care of one person
Right,
for the calendar year?
yes.
And that one person would be the one that works with the judicial system. Let's say if I show up to someone home as a county commissioner and I see something that ain't straight, I see a person that shouldn't be over the money because now they're addicted to cocaine and the court may not be aware of it. They may be on opiate and the court may not be aware of it. Certainly the guardian or whoever that is there oversees that individual ain't gonna come and say, I'm on cocaine now. So that would deal with that situation.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor, for explaining this to me. I have seen in my dealings with the elderly, and specifically in my community, the abuse that has taken place. And what stuns me, I totally was not aware we didn't have someone that protected elderly and disadvantaged in our community. I have personally seen individuals that may have started out with the good intentions, but now that relatives have become a lifeline for them and for the abuse of addiction. And also the fact that now they have started stopping relatives and anyone else from seeing that person so they can't tell the truth about what's taking place. And so I have questioned that myself by visiting people. Okay, should this person actually be over this individual? And they'll tell you, it'll take but 2 or 3 minutes for you to find out that something's wrong. because they would tell you that something is wrong. I got control of the money. I get all the medication for her. I don't allow anybody to come see them. And this is some home. I'm not talking to a facility. So I'm going to support it. I'm going to support it. And I think it need to be seen. And I'm emotional when you talk about these situations. And I understand what Commissioner Barr is going through. Just to think someone can have someone in my family hostage, and I'm far away, and to find out that they can't watch TV and these things are going, and no one can walk in there and question and say, are you happy? Are you satisfied being here? Someone independently. Because let's face it, the people you're talking about are not going to tell the truth.
Absolutely, and again, the easiest way to explain, Dana, and I explain that to people who have questions, imagine me in a robe walking into the home. Because ultimately, the buck stops with me as the guardianship judge, and I don't have that ability. But when I tell people, when I explain what her function is, imagine me walking in, asking the ward, how you doing? How you feeling? You getting enough to eat? Are you happy? Would you rather be in another place? I can't rely on a 3-page document once a year to give me that assurance. I can tell you I sleep a lot better having data in that position. All of us who have been in a position where we've had a loved one either have to have care by someone else or being in an assisted living facility, there's a lot of emotion there. There's a lot of feeling because we all want to make certain that we have done what we need to do. This assures the citizens of Manatee County that the courts are doing everything that we can do to make sure that person is comfortable and in having an enjoyable quality of life, or as good a quality of life that we can do.
And my
So
last
thank you.
comment on this here, Madam Chair, is that, you know, I asked the question whether some of the state was, and the state really not in the business of what you're saying. I just had to ask that question, whether it's something that the state turned down and something that you can request for. For me, it's, as Your Honor mentioned, Chief Circuit Judge, it's a humanitarian thing to do. It's the right thing to do. It's a Christian thing to do. If you got elderly and family, this is a protection for all of us in Manatee County that if we can't get there, we can make a phone call and someone can go out there and make sure mom and dad is okay. And instead of calling the person who oversees and got the power of attorney who has a reason to deceive the court. So I'm supporting this 100%, $41,000. And I feel like I know Commissioner Barr, brother, you know, through her, because I remember when the incident took place, and she was distraught. She's distraught today because you never get over the death of your loved one. So I'm going to support it. I appreciate you, and I'm going to look out more. And I've seen some of these cases where, you know, these people have no business over the money. Over $100,000 now, you can tell they're on drugs. They might not have been on drugs from day one, but now they're on drugs. So we need someone to find out. And this is why people life savings get all of a sudden snatched from them, because they have nobody speaking on behalf of them. So I'm going to support it, and I'm supporting the flag of it, and I hope the funding will come if I got anything to do with it.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Benek.
Thank you. I just had a couple of questions. Do we know what the total cost would be of this position with benefits? Do we have an estimate?
I don't. It would probably be less than 60,000 total, I would think.
Okay. I just,
I
you
can
know, when we're
calculate
talking
it
numbers, I just want to make sure we're talking correct numbers. Just a question. So, because this could go to alternative funding sources other than general revenue. So are these folks that don't have the means to hire their own attorneys to fight this situation? Is that generally what we're talking about?
Well, here's the tragic irony about guardianships. The person who's subject to the guardianship only has attorney representation for 60 days.
Yeah.
After 60 days, guess who has an attorney to represent them? The guardian. Guess who doesn't have an attorney to represent them? The ward. So that's the problem. That's the missing gap, is that the ward has no one to advocate for them. they're at really the mercy of the guardian.
Even if they have the resources to hire their own attorney, they can't call attorney and say, I'm being abused by this guardian.
Well, here's again the tragic irony. Those rights have been taken away. They have no right to contract, they have no right to their finances, they have no right to, many times, to even socialize with someone that the guardian doesn't approve.
And the reason I ask that is because obviously we have different resources if people, like block grant funding, I was
Right.
thinking, because,
Right,
so Sarasota funds this out of general revenue?
Yes.
Okay, so that's really the only funding. We talked about state funding, but this is considered a non-court position?
It's a court position, but
Okay.
it's not a general court position
Okay.
that the state funds. The state sort of puts it into, because not every circuit has one, and they haven't done it across the board, even though they should, that it's a court innovation, and court innovations like drug court and things like that are kind of pushed back onto the counties, as you guys know.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Ball.
Yeah, just one quick thing. I think the point that we might be missing here is that a lot of times when our family members get up older, as was said earlier, they do have dementia or Alzheimer's or something like that, where they're not aware of a lot of things, and they're taken advantage of by others. And it's not always, as they said, as the judge said, it's not always a family member. It could be someone that tries to be a girlfriend who comes in and just takes over. And the family has no way to really do anything until it's too late. And unfortunately, sometimes when that happens, unless the person has someone that's really looking after them, they can cause injury to themselves or to others, and it's too late. So for the amount of money that we're talking, it's ridiculous to even be concerned with whether or not we should do this. I mean, I know yesterday when we were in our other meetings, we flagged an item for about the same amount of money that wasn't anything along this line. And this is so important. We don't have anything like it here. And I'm telling you, until you're put in that position, you don't realize the importance, because unfortunately, half the time it's too late. So this is very, very important. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't realize just how important it is. And unfortunately, for me and my family, it's too late.
Okay, I
So we need
agree,
to
it's
do
a very
this.
emotional issue. I was the one that flagged it, actually.
Yes,
I
ma'am,
told
thank
Ed
you.
back last week, I'm flagging this, it's very important, especially with our elderly population, and we do have a lot that, that we do need to keep moving on. So I ask y'all to keep it very short, because a lot of y'all have already spoken. Commissioner Whitmore?
My button won't go off. I've tried
Oh,
to turn
okay.
it on.
Commissioner
mine won't
Commissioner
either.
Johnson?
It's still flashing.
Yeah, just getting back to your budget, Walt, if we could for a second, because I think the 41 or 60 or whatever it is a foregone conclusion. The other items that we have, that you had recommended and we have decided not to fund, you're fine with all those. This is, your main argument is this
Yes.
one position, is that correct?
We still would, these are, the other, like the IT things are just kind of recurring second year kinds of things that the Financial Services Department here wanted us to bring to your attention and say, these are basic things that occur under IT, like the software agreement. Everybody needs to have software on their computers to run. This is the second year, and you guys do 2-year budgets. And so this is the second year. It's just, they wanted us to bring this to your attention to make sure you knew that these were things that needed to get funded. Just, they wanted you to know about that.
Okay, well, then that leaves me a little confused, I guess, Chan, because your recommended budget shows us not funding any of those second-year
Well-
continuing things, so.
As Walt pointed out, this is a 2-year budget, and these are the items, just to keep them on the front burner, as still issues out there for the judicial folks and the court administration folks. We haven't had the money to fund them last year. We don't have the funding this year, but we we have them on the radar scope. Next year, when we do the 2-year budget, they'll be here, and we'll be up front with those dollars.
Okay, thank you, that explains it.
Bernack, and this will be the last one. No one's
Yeah,
button's working, so after this one, start raising your fingers if you want to, but we're going to move on after Commissioner Bernack.
And I wasn't going to ask this because I thought that was the only thing we were talking about. But if we have a shortfall in funding the technology, and it's supposed to be funded by a fee that's charged, when was the last time that fee was increased? I mean, is the fee the problem, that we're not adequately funding the technology with the fee that we're charging?
I don't know, Ms. Brewer maybe have a better specifics on the revenue that comes in versus the costs that go out. But, so if you want to, the fee I'll tell you, the fee hasn't been changed. It's a $2 a page fee since we moved from county funding to state funding for the court system in 2004. So we've tried from the court system to get the fee increased to help pay for some of these technology things because we're all moving to a higher level of technology. You know, nobody gets paper files anymore, and judges don't get them either. You're all looking at computers, and those software programs cost money, and, you know, we have to keep up with it. And the state seems oblivious to that. But maybe you can talk about the fees and the revenue versus the costs.
I think Walt's on the right track there. When the state made this transfer back 20-plus years ago, the fee was the fee. It's the same thing we've experienced with when we get the tax collector, is the tax collector took over the business of license plates, and there's a fee that comes with it. Well, when they took it over, the fee might have covered the cost, but the costs have gone up and the fee remains the same. And so tax collectors across the state are suffering of, why did we accept that responsibility of license plates from the state? I think this is an item that we would put on your legislative platform. I'll be talking to all the county administrators in a meeting later this month to see if we could collectively get the Florida Association of Counties and the county administrators to get together and put a platform. It's about time the state looks at some of their fees. Since it doesn't impact the state budget, because the cost is on our side, they're a little reticent to raise the fee, but I think if we worked with the other counties in concert with its time, and I think a nominal increase in the fee would go a long way in funding today's technology needs, as Walt pointed out.
Right. You know, a 50-cent increase in the fee per page generates hundreds of thousands of dollars, you know, across the state, millions of dollars. So,
I mean, we've had to increase our fees for things like utilities because we know we have to, replace.
right.
Stuff wears out. It's
The
no
court
difference in
The court
technology.
supports it.
All right, we thank y'all very much and
Thank you.
appreciate y'all coming. Great
Sorry for going
presentation.
over time. So.
All right, Mr. Brodsky, which is page 14. Keeping up.
Next.
Yes.
Well, good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Mr. Hunsaker, and Ms. Brewer. It's a privilege to be here. This is Ed Brodsky on behalf of the State Attorney's Office. I'm here with Jennifer Strawn, our Executive Director. Last week, each of you should have received a letter that I directed to you. And the purpose of that letter is I really wanted to address kind of the state of the State Attorney's Office with regard to county matters. So I hope each of you have received those and had a chance to look at it, because many of the topics that were discussed in there are discussed today in our budget presentation to you. We have just a few matters that Section 29 of the Florida statutes and the Florida Constitution deal with that touch upon areas of responsibility from the county. I think, as I listened to the presentation by Judge Williams and by Walt Smith and the Guardianship Monitor, I think about what a worthy program that is and how important that is. But I think about, that demonstrates the importance of judicial functions operating smoothly and efficiently for the betterment of our citizens here in Manatee County. And likewise, some of the things that we have here that touch upon county responsibilities, I think are equally important. So as we look at the list, I've got a couple areas that I just wanted to touch upon. And the first one is, I guess I don't know if it's page 15 of yours. It's highlighted as page 15 of mine, but basically it's the highlighted screen here that everyone's looking at. The first item is the IT director position. We currently have an IT director that oversees our technology folks, and we have a full-time person here in Manatee County. We have a full-time person in Sarasota County. And in addition, he's the IT director over those two individuals. As all of you know, technology has significantly increased, and as Walt Smith just talked about, as the court administrator, the courts are beginning to utilize fileless systems. We're in the process. Now a number of the state attorney's offices are introducing and are bringing on paperless systems to their offices. So we're probably maybe the middle of the road. There's 20 state attorney's offices, 20 circuits, and we're probably in the middle as far as where we are with bringing that technology to our office. Where we are currently is our Venice office is currently fileless, and we're in Sarasota County beginning fileless systems there. Our misdemeanor unit is fileless, and we're about to go live with our felony unit there in August. Then we're going to go to DeSoto County, and then we plan to come here to Manatee County. But that is a Herculean effort. I've got a large number of folks that are working in that regard to make that happen, and it's been a large collaboration with the sheriff's office, the courts, the clerk of the court, all of the different law enforcement agencies, the defense attorneys, the public defender's offices. And all of us have, even from one clerk to the next, from the Manatee clerk to the Sarasota clerk to the DeSoto clerk, we all operate on different systems. Even from our office to the different law enforcement agencies, we operate on different systems. And so it has been a rather extensive coordinated effort to organize these efforts in order to become fileless and to improve our efficiencies. The position has been, as Walt indicated, with the guardianship monitor, that is a position there that's been funded by Sarasota County. We've been fortunate there that the HAF position has been funded by Sarasota County as well. So because our IT director covers the circuit, and so he's responsible for Manatee County, Sarasota County, and DeSoto County. We're asking for the portion, not including DeSoto County, not including the portion of Sarasota County that they have paid for. We're asking for 47.5% for that position here in Manatee County as we continue our efforts with technology. And I guess what I would point out is statutorily and through Florida Constitution, those are respectfully responsibilities of the county. And when they're not funded to our office, we have to fund those with state dollars. And that's what I'm currently doing. I'm funding that position with state dollars. But when I do that, that puts a strain on our state budget. That puts a strain on the ability of the things that we need to do as an office for serving the people of Manatee County. So that is an important position, and we would ask for that HAF position. The next item is our drug court position, and all of you have witnessed certainly the opioid epidemic and the epidemic that we've been dealing with heroin and fentanyl and carfentanil. We had a very significant verdict this past week with a very large trafficking amount of drugs involving heroin with fentanyl, with a very large sentence, 35 years prison sentence that was handed down last week after a verdict. But one of the things that we have done here as a community and working with law enforcement and working with our courts is we're doing everything that we can to commit our resources to treating those folks in our community that are entering the criminal justice system, that are being arrested because of their addiction to drugs. And if you were to go to the Manatee County Jail, we talk about we call the Manatee County Jail the largest mental health treatment facility here in Manatee County. But if you were to talk to the folks there, a significant number of those folks would tell you that they're addicted to drugs. And many of the crimes that are committed in the community are committed because they're doing it to fuel their addiction to crime. Fuel their addiction for drugs. So Manatee County, and through our office, through the public defender's office, through court administration, through the court system here, we have dedicated our efforts to working very closely to enhancing our drug court program. I strongly believe that by identifying these offenders that are low risk, not likely to commit any violent offenses, that we put them into these programs and we rid them of their substance abuse problem. We make them hopefully crime-free so that they're not committing new crimes. And a lot of them don't have jobs or have housing issues, don't have stable housing, and we work with them on all of those issues. So they become crime-free, free of substance abuse, and they become productive members of our community. Because as we know, many of these offenders that we see are folks that are going to return to our community, whether they go to the jail, the county jail for a period of time, whether they go to the Department of Corrections for a period of time. We know that there's a large number of these folks that are going to be returning back to our communities. So if we can treat them so that they aren't addicted to drugs, and if we can ensure that they're not going to be trying to fuel their drug addiction to make them commit crimes, hopefully we're going to reduce recidivism. So because of that, when we started the program in its infancy, to give you some historical background about the drug court coordinator position, it was a position that was occupied by one person who traveled back and forth between Manatee County and Sarasota County. She spent 2 or 3 days in Sarasota County or 2 or 3 days in Manatee County, and she handled drug court in both of the courts. But because of the expansion of the program, and we're trying to make sure that in Manatee County and in both in Sarasota County, we operate at full occupancy, and we want to make sure that we get as many people into this program and treat as many people as possible. And so, as you've heard previously before, we've done everything that we can to support those initiatives, to fully fund and support the drug court program, make sure that they have the counselors in place to run that program. But it has required, in both of our counties, that we dedicate a full-time drug court coordinator to processing, reviewing, and reaching out to the attorneys to coordinate those cases for drug court. So what we are asking for, and in the past, and I appreciate this, the county has approved partial funding when the position was a part-time position, but it has now become a full-time position. So what we're seeking for is the balance of that position, which is highlighted as $42,267.
So it's not the 66. I was confused in
Right.
the letter, so it's the 42?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And the reason is because that 29 was a partial figure that the county has already funded, and
Oh,
I
okay.
believe that's a recurring amount. And it is. That's what I've been told. It's a recurring amount. So, so then lastly, that leads me to a discussion of the issue of security. And I guess, and I know you've read my letter, but I think it just bears just kind of in comparison. I talked about the Manatee County Sheriff's Office, right? I mean, if you think about the Manatee County Sheriff's Office, large agency, right, headquarters downtown right by the mall, probably 100 deputies or more in that facility, all of them armed, all of them have arrest powers. But yet if any one of us goes to visit the Manatee County Sheriff's Office, you're going to be met by deputies behind glass, fully armed, with arrest powers. And if you were to go inside the facility, if you were to try to ask, hey, can I go see somebody inside the facility, you're going to go through screening. And these are folks that are law enforcement, fully armed, have full capability to defend themselves. And then I compare further, as I discussed in the letter, I compare the other folks that are working in criminal justice here in the court system, the legal system. I think about the courts. Obviously, as you go across the street, a litany of deputies that are there with screening equipment, handling all of the criminal cases that come before them. You have the public defender's office, same thing, handling the criminal cases, but if anybody were to go see the public defender's office, they have full security and deputies and things like that that you have to go through. I think about the Manatee Clerk of the Court, they handle the files, right? And they handle petitioners for injunctions and things like that. They also have, if you were to go into the entrance of the Manatee Clerk's office, you're met by bailiffs, and you have to go through a litany of screening devices to get into the facility. We're the only ones that are in the criminal justice circle that, in our building, we have no security. There is no law enforcement presence, there's no security screening devices that they have to go through. And we're the ones that, we receive all of the work that's generated by the Manatee County Sheriff's Office and all of the other agencies in this jurisdiction and federal agencies and whatnot. And as I presented to you, and those are just some of the incidents that have been documented by employees, I gave you a number of incidents. In fact, as I wrote the letter, we had 2 incidents literally back-to-back in sequential days of incidents of threats, either defendants that are upset about something or victims that are upset about something or witnesses that are upset about something. And so there has been, as I indicated in the letter, time and time again, that our office has expressed concern about security issues in our building and our inability to respond swiftly and efficiently in a manner that's appropriate. So, and so then lastly, our request is for security to be enhanced and provided. And we recommend, and what our recommendation is that we have a law enforcement officer, and we've talked to the sheriff's office about that, and we provided some figures. And we've gotten some varying figures on that, so, as Ms. Brewer knows, but that's our final request.
The commissioners don't know. They were just
okay.
looking at me.
Oh, okay.
We received this week information that came from the sheriff's office that was a much lower amount than what our normal deputies are. Neil may want to explain that, explain the difference, but it was a substantial variance. So I had asked back why there was a change.
Neil Anru, Comptroller with the Sheriff's Office. Quickly, what we were asked for, talked with the sheriff on that. What the numbers that we provided Ed and his group was for a bailiff-type employee. So that is different than a road deputy. So we did them at the base entry level with the 4% increases and so on. And then our operations cost, what we did is we mirrored the contracts with Anna Maria and the SROs where we had a certain amount for training, for uniforms and so on. We used that for our operations cost, and that got us to a total of just around $80,000 for the deputy costs for the SAO.
So my question would be, on the variances between the stabilized things, can we adjust the 10 deputies to that level, or no? Like on the uniforms and the other things?
And again, what we'd be bringing over here is more of a seasoned deputy that already has those, and those are kind of standard uniforms. Those uniforms and other trainings, an initial officer would have a much more training than what would a seasoned deputy coming in here.
Okay.
Is that, if that makes any sense?
Okay.
Seasoned deputy would have.
Already has stuff.
I mean, he's already gone through FDO and other trainings through there.
Stuff.
And he's fully
Bailiff is a
armed?
seasoned deputy, is that what you're saying?
We have bailiffs here that have been here many years with us, and they are at different levels, entry level, second class, first class deputies. So we just budgeted for one that is not a second or first class deputy, just the regular deputy.
Okay. Carol?
Ed, thank you. I just have a couple questions.
Yes.
You're asking for the IT director, our share, the 47.5. Have you already got commitments, and it has been from the other 2 counties that they would do their share, or is this just?
Sarasota's, last year, right? Last year, I was looking at my executive director. Last year, we requested that funding from Sarasota County, and we were provided that funding from Sarasota County.
Well, they're $6 million short in their budget. So are you committed for this
Oh, for
coming
this
budget?
year? It's well, we haven't presented to them this year, but I believe it's in their recommended budget, right?
Okay, well, this year they were short $6 million in their budget. So so this is the first county. Isn't there 3 counties that you're doing this
Yes,
with?
yes.
Okay, so far, we're the first one you're asking?
No, we've asked previously. Last year, we asked Sarasota County, and Sarasota County approved the funding. So we are being funded for half of the position in Sarasota County. This is my second time back up, asking again for the position here.
Okay. And then my next question, again, for the drug court, I know we all support drug court, but it's kind of on the same vein as Judge Williams. The court fines you get, I know you have to pay back drug court, and you're in a program for so long, you have to pay all the cost. Do you have a leeway, or is it legal for you to charge more to be able to pay for some of these positions?
The only thing that we're allowed to collect, other than we ask for budgetary increases through the legislature, but this is a specialized, localized program, is the only other funds that we're allowed to collect. And in fact, at one point, I was looking to see if we could increase that funding, but right now it's set. There's a standard set fee, and we utilize that for other things, but not for this program right here.
Could you use it for this position if you,
Do you want to come up?
by state law, can you not? I'm just trying to think of a way to fund it because,
Hi, Jennifer Strawn.
I'd like you to
Executive-
at least work towards something.
Jennifer Strawn, Executive Director for the State Attorney's Office.
Could you get a little closer to the microphone?
Sure.
Thank you.
We currently already subsidize the position with state funds. That's really our only other alternative. Funding for local drug court positions falls under statute, 29.
So right now, you're paying for it,
We
but
are.
you'd like for us to pay for it, but is there a way that your fines can pay for it? Help, that's what I'm asking.
To some extent, they already do. I mean, we collect fees through cost of prosecution, which go into a trust fund in addition to general revenue funding. It's already supplementing our salaries that we're paying for prosecutors.
Okay, thank you. And
Already
then the
utilizing
last
it.
comment regarding the MSO, I just don't understand the low charge versus the high charge from what we pay to, but that's another issue.
We'll sort that out.
And one of the ways that he did describe that when I spoke to him was our needs don't require, I don't think, a deputy that requires a vehicle, among other things. And so I think that they were trying to figure out a way to limit, to the extent that they could, the costs that would be charged for us to have this position so that we could have the security that we need.
And in some counties, you do have to go through a metal detector and everything when you even
correct.
enter the county building. So,
Correct.
that's something you can always look at the entire thing, because I think you've had the incident, we had an incident a couple weeks ago, the same thing. So that's something, I don't know what we could do about that, but that may be something to satisfy the entire building too. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Benek?
Yeah, I was wondering, do you know why in the design of the judicial center, there wasn't space allocated for the state attorney? It seems to make sense, that you would be in that location and.
Well, originally, I think the state attorney's office was designed to go in there. I think that, and this was under Earl Moreland at the time, but I believe my understanding historically about what happened, and all of you may have better memories than I do since I wasn't in this position at that time, is that at the time there was a certification from the Supreme Court adding a new circuit court judge, which was going to increase the number of our attorneys to our staff. And at that time, my understanding was that Mr. Moreland felt that we didn't have enough room for growth or future growth in that space. And so we remained where we are, as we're talking about space. So, which I appreciate you bringing that up. And, I know that property management's here and Mr. Bishop's here. They have been great, and we appreciate a lot of the renovations and things that are happening. I just wanted to make sure, by way of that letter to you all, and I've had conversations with Mr. Hunsaker about that, and I know that there are some discussions about possibilities in the future. I just think it was just important for me to make sure that all of you were aware that if something happens where the Supreme Court certifies that we're creating a Fourth Circuit Court judge, and we're going to add a new unit of felony prosecutors, or if they're going to add a new county court judge, and we have to add misdemeanor lawyers or staff, we don't have any more room. We're out of room, and we don't have any more room for expansion. And so I just wanted to make sure everyone's kind of aware of that and is able to contemplate what the right moves are here in the future.
Okay, well, I'm glad you brought that up because that was going to be one of my questions. And I understand your response is more, if this happens, then you'll need more space. Because my question, quite frankly, was going to be, if we have a reduction in crime, why do we need more space for the state attorney? And I understand the sheriff position, they need more deputies to cover an increase in population. But if there truly is a reduction in crime, theoretically, your workload should be lighter. Correct?
Right. But it's not. I mean, it is lighter, and, well, there is certainly, we have seen here in Manatee County through the last year a significant drop in crime. Kudos to the sheriff's office and law enforcement here. But I think it's because, prosecutions and I think the criminal justice system is working much more smarter and more efficiently. I think it's when we create these programs that we're working. I mean, like we have the Veterans Court program, the Drug Court program, we have a mental health court program. We're really targeting the services that we're providing offenders, and we're making a difference. We may see fewer criminal arrests, but they are now becoming manpower intensive on our end as far as the services that the court's providing to them and the services that we're providing to these folks, because it's not just come on into the, welcome inside the criminal justice and out you go. The court is spending a lot of time, and our folks are spending much more time making sure that we're directing the right services so that we can make a change in behavior. And so I think that's what we're seeing. In addition, I mean, we're actually growing in size. I'm actually adding prosecutors. I'm specializing. I'm making sure that we have the highest trained prosecutors available to handle our special cases. I want homicide prosecutors with, considerable experience so that we go in and we do a good job. I've got specialized prosecution units in sex crimes and violent crime, and we want to make sure that we've got good folks, white collar crime, animal crimes. I mean, these are all specialties that when we have folks handling those cases, we want to have really dedicated, seasoned and experienced folks handling those cases. Fileless, for example, we increase right now in Sarasota County as we get ready to go fileless in Sarasota County. We've added to our record unit four individuals. I mean, I've got 4 people now just in the process of scanning records. So, while we may see a reduction in one area, it's because of a lot of work and effort in another area. And so we haven't seen a reduction. I don't think the sheriff's office is reducing the number of the deputies that they have. And as they increase deputies and as agencies increase the number of officers on the road, those are still cases that are coming into our office. They're generating even more cases, and we have lots of different programs that we are putting these offenders into.
Okay, well, I guess I'll ask the question then about going fileless, and you said that in Sarasota you're going fileless, and certainly we see the state attorneys up and down the elevator here in this building, carting their files.
Right.
It does seem a little archaic.
Yes.
But you said you changed in Sarasota, so how did you have the funds in Sarasota to make those changes? And you said that you're going to change in DeSoto and that Manatee County, I guess, would be last for that. Is that because they're funding something that we're not in order to create that fileless system?
All of the positions that we've asked for here that have been not approved of here have been approved in Sarasota County.
They're funding it out of their general revenue in Sarasota County, not out of the state
Well, the drug
funds.
court coordinator position is funded in Sarasota County. The IT director position is funded in Sarasota County. I mean, and unfortunately, we're fortunate for that and we're grateful for that. Unfortunately, because we're not being funded for those positions here, it puts a strain on us because we have to carry it with our state dollars.
I was pretty sure you weren't going to say that you needed less money and less people because crime is being reduced, so I'm not surprised by your answer, but I had to ask the question. And then finally, the issue of security. We had to, this past year, we had to substantially up our security in this building. We had to go to a key or a card entry system in the county commission chambers. We had to have more deputies in this building. I mean, this is certainly just standard. I mean, just recently we had to add a security guard down here on the first floor. So everyone is looking, and of course we all know what's going on in our schools.
Right.
And this has been a really, really tough issue for this community resolved, but it's not just one department that is facing this. So we had a discussion about this yesterday, that we need to have a discussion in this community. What does security mean? Does it really mean OA's hiring a seasoned deputy to be located to protect their government officials? Is that really what we need to do? We're not doing it in the schools. So does that make sense? We need to talk about this further in this community. I don't know what security means and who should be providing that security. So I think that's, from my perspective, that's where we're going with this, because it's certainly an issue, but I don't want to say, you get the gold standard.
Sure.
That's my concern. So we need to continue to have this discussion, just letting you know that's where I'm coming from.
Well, and respectfully, the only thing I would say to that is that, as I indicated, when you look at, like, for example, the sheriff's office with the security measures that they have in place, rightfully so, but that they have those in place, and when you look at all the other pieces that are involved in the criminal justice system and the number of incidents that we've reported to you, and the fact that not only Florida statute but Florida Constitution says what security is, it defines to you what security is, and it means a presence of security, and it requires you to provide it for the state attorney's office. I mean, the law says that the county has an obligation. So it's not what does the community want. The Florida legislature and the Florida Constitution has dictated that those are requirements.
Well, I'm glad you're telling us that, but I'm going to ask my county attorney to
I
opine
understand
as well.
And
So thank you.
And I wish Mickey Palmer was here because he would tell you the same
Coming
thing.
down in a
We
minute,
are going to be
probably.
talking about it with Mickey Palmer.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner DeSabatino.
That's interesting.
Oh, I'm
No,
sorry.
you're not, we're not done. You're-
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought, my apologies.
We get to cross-examine.
Please.
I don't get the last word, believe me.
Although I do listen to the state attorney.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here today and presenting your budget. I just wanted to check with Ed, because we recently installed locked doors on a lot of our offices on the outside, so people we have either our key cards or you have to get buzzed in. And you put that on the 6th floor? You're on the 6th floor, right?
Yes.
Yes, Charlie Bishop's been working with the state attorney and his office folks about how do we enhance security on the 6th floor, as well as security leading from the parking garage that comes into the 6th floor. And I think there's still other projects that are in the works.
So that's a good point. The security coming in from that parking lot, anybody can really get in that way. So
Not
are you
anymore.
making sure only key
Any-
cards?
Any card-carrying county employee can get in now.
Okay, that's good. And do we have a full-time, I know we have deputies, I see the sheriff out there. Do we have deputies full-time in this building?
No,
No.
Okay, and so,
only when
So-
you have your meetings here on the first floor, they're
okay.
typically at that.
So when we're talking with our workshop regarding security, it's my opinion that if we find we're in need of an armed officer, maybe assign one to the building that can roam throughout the day and be down here in the lobby as well, because chances are, this is where it's going to initiate.
That could come out from your discussion. We talked to the department directors this morning to put together a analysis of where they see risk exposures that aren't being met today, so that we can have a full-blown discussion about security with the Board of County Commissioners, and that would include security of buildings, security of individuals, as well as cybersecurity.
So would it be appropriate for us to simply flag that full-time MSO deputy pending discussion of what comes out of our meetings, whether it's that deputy is going to be used
I would-
building-wide or?
You could do that. You have a reserve for contingency that's built into the budget, that when we get around to that meeting, you can use those funds for funding additional security, no matter what it is, whether it's a position or more equipment or cameras or who knows what.
Right, because I'm suggesting just flagging it just so it's not a definite no, but it's a placeholder in case.
I'll
I'll second that for discussion, as a second flag for that item for discussion. I have some questions. Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
Wait, you're after Commissioner Ball. If you're done, Commissioner DeSabatino?
Let me just check. Yes, and just so we're square on the dedicated full-time coordinator, that's the 42,267 and not the 23.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's it.
Commissioner
Thank
Ball.
you.
Yeah, you know, one thing that I keep thinking about here, number one, if we're going to do any sort of risk exposure here about this building and our occupants, the sheriff's department needs to be involved in that.
Sure.
I mean, we'd be silly not to do that, I think, although I know we've got a great staff. But, and the other thing is, I keep thinking about when we go to the Capitol in Tallahassee, or when you go to the Capitol in DC. Not just anybody walks in every door. They have doors to those buildings that you cannot get in, no matter who you are, unless you're a
Right.
senator or a congress, or whatever the case may be. And they also have security features there when you do go in that you have to go through. And I think we should look at that for this building. I mean, if it's good enough for our legislators in Tallahassee and our legislators in DC, by God, it should be good enough for this building as well, I would think. And, you know, I see
Hillsborough has one.
yeah. Charlie's over there. He might think about it too. I don't know. But at any rate, I think that we do need to, I'm glad it's being flagged because I do think we need to look at it. The state attorney's office, you have a lot of tough cases that come through your office. And we know, this board knows from some of the things that we go through and some of the threats that we've had. I've been followed twice home. I've been threatened. And I don't deal with half of what you guys do. So it is something we need to look at.
Outside my house.
I'm sorry?
I said, I had a sheriff car parked outside my house.
Oh, I get
had
that on
two.
occasion,
They arrested
too.
somebody out in front of my house.
Oh, you'll have to tell us
Wow.
more about that.
Well, I'll be glad to.
Put
At
that
any
on-
rate.
Put that on the agenda.
Yeah, I didn't know that. But see, we know what you're talking about. We've been going through it the last couple of years as well. So it is something that we need to look at. And the other thing that I just want to bring up, and I'm a little bit confused, Ed, you know, drug court's very important. And I remember Commissioner Bustle, when he was here, it was very dear to his heart. And I think Carol said she saw him last night. So the drug court person, it's 42,267. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
I'd like to flag that for us to look at.
I'll second that flag for conversation, Madam Chair.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you, ma'am.
Commissioner Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, I think we need to have a broad conversation dealing with security. As you know, we don't have security. And you can be buzzed in, and you can come in there with anything you want and deal with us in our office. So I think we need to look at that a little broad. I know that it was brought up about security to the courthouse. Remember, the county commissioner's office in the courthouse. That's why you go through the metal detector. I think Manatee County government at one time was asking for ID to come in the building. Right over here, because I was asked for ID and I didn't get mine years ago. It was a public building. But Mr. Brodsky, but you are the top law enforcement official in the 12th Judicial Circuit, Manatee, Sarasota, and DeSoto. When you speak of security, you have the power and authority, even though what the statute may say, you are a law enforcement officer to protect the community. You have the authority, you told a badge, you can tote a gun, and I've seen state attorneys with guns, believe it or not.
See some county.
Your assistants, by your choosing, you can allow them to tote guns. By your choosing, you had authority to do that. So my question to you, do you feel more comfortable with the sheriff department doing that? Because this is something that you can settle probably tomorrow with your authority.
Well, and I appreciate that question, Commissioner Smith. And yes, we do have the authority to carry firearms, and our assistants have the authority to carry firearms, and I do let my assistants carry firearms. And in fact, we've done training, and in fact, I just talked to Colonel Dennison the other day about, perhaps having the sheriff's office help train some of our folks in firearms training. And that's good. The thing is unfortunately, a lot of the folks in our office are staff. And a lot of the times when it's an angry person that's at the front desk and wants to see someone, it's not an assistant state attorney with a firearm, and I'd rather not put my folks in the business of security. And so a lot of times when they're dealing with someone that's angry or upset or threatening us, and we've had a number of our prosecutors that have been threatened by offenders. We've had our staff threatened by offenders, by a number of different folks. And there is no immediate law enforcement, someone standing there in a uniform. A presence of an assistant state attorney that they don't know who they are in plain clothes with no, indicia of authority, who happens to have a gun under their, hidden, isn't the same indicia of authority that causes someone to comply and to conform their behavior, as opposed to a uniform presence, such as a deputy standing there. I think if a deputy was standing on my floor, that it would certainly conform behavior in a much different way, and my people wouldn't be berated by folks that are upset about one thing or another. So I understand where you're going, and yes, it would be comforting, and it is comforting to know that some of my folks are armed, but it doesn't give us my folks don't have arrest powers, for example. So to immediately effect an arrest isn't going to happen unless we call law enforcement and wait for a response. And we have had some issues here, quite frankly, between who's supposed to be called, who's supposed to respond. It's a Manatee County building. It's in the city of Bradenton. And sometimes I know that we've called law enforcement, and there's been some discussion with dispatchers as to who's supposed to respond to this building. So we've even had some confusion about that. And our folks have had some confusion about who is it that we're supposed to be trying to reach out to. Is it the sheriff's office? Is it the Bradenton Police Department? So we believe, and that's why I advocate that it would be a law enforcement presence that needs to be here. We also want to make sure that they don't have weapons when we let them inside the interior of the building. And that requires screening measures and things like that to make sure that we're not letting someone in. It could be in a serious type of a case that they have a weapon or something, and we want to make sure that they don't.
You're an investigator. I believe Mr. Brown, is he still with you?
Yes, he is.
Okay, you have that one. You have arrest powers, but let me move forward. Would you be open to us looking at a security guard, law enforcement, whatever it may be, in this general building, maybe on your floor, maybe here on the first floor when you come in, maybe wandering around where he or she will easily get to any office, working with you, maybe the sheriff in our workshop, working that out? Would that be something you'd be open to? Because we got a security problem. We do.
Right.
As you know, we park on the floor, we walk through the crowd, and come in the building. Well, people can just sit there and wait on us. They know where we park. And I know the county administrator was talking about the 6th floor. Well, and he's doing some things with that for security, and hopefully still working with our sheriff. I feel a little more strange coming on the bottom floor, to be honest with you. I know we can come through the 6th floor from that standpoint. But so would that be something? That's why I supported flagging it. So since we have already collectively decided to talk about security in general, I think that's something that we can talk about also for county commission. So this one individual that you're requesting, I think Commissioner DeSabatino brought up a good point. I know when I go to the county commission buildings, there's armed guard in the county commission building right there in the front, and there's private security armed, but there's one deputy wandering around in the different locations for security purposes.
I would welcome that conversation. I think that would be an important conversation, and anything that we can do to work with the county, certainly if we can provide security for our office and for county employees and those that visit the county building, I think that would be wonderful.
And I know my good friend Commissioner Bobby, I think before I became a county commissioner, I know she had fought to get security for the chambers through Sheriff Stubbe. And I believe the statute that you're talking about, and I think this is how we got the security, because the statute says that the sheriff shall guard the county commission. It's in the statute, Florida statute. That's why you have deputies versus city policemen sitting in here, because that was a legal dispute years ago in West Palm Beach when all of a sudden the deputies left the courthouse and they sent the police department over there. You remember that legal dispute years ago?
Right.
But anyway, I'm open to it, but I think we need to talk about everything from that standpoint. Now, drug court. Drug court. Some kind of way, whether state or local, or whatever the situation may be, we need to continue to fund drug court. As the commissioner mentioned, she's absolutely correct. I know that was the former Commissioner Bustle. That was his baby. And you know, he served as chairman of the Public Safety Coordinating Committee for, I believe, 4 consecutive years. And I'm finishing my third or second year. I don't know. State attorney caused so much trouble for me. I don't know what I'm doing anymore. But anyway, I know that that was something that he wanted to make sure we do. Number one, how many people is incarcerated in the jail? Number two, continue drug court. Those are things that Commissioner Bustle talked about. So, but my question is, do the state fund you? You've been funded through the state, or are they refusing to fund you, Mr. State Attorney? Or I want to be clear on that.
Well, they give us the funding to run the office the way that we deem fit, I mean, that we deem necessary. And so, you know, we look to the county to fund those positions that the statute outlines, that we can look to the county to help us. And everything that the county does, I mean, that's the only reason I'm here, is because everything that we can do to help, you know, to work together with the county to help us with, for example, drug court and things like that, allows us to continue to improve the services that we provide the citizens of Manatee County. It allows us to allocate all of our state resources, or more of our state resources, for other programs and initiatives that we offer here in Manatee County. And we've implemented a lot of them. Drug court is something I've been strongly advocating for and been very passionate about the difference that it makes in this community. But we've started, and we're in the process. I mean, we've got the Veterans Court program that we've begun. That's part of the drug court program. We've got you know, a TILA program working with human trafficking and prostitution, and we're currently looking at working with mental health through the drug court program. We're doing everything that we can to try to help with the problems that are happening in our community, to do everything that we can to turn people's lives around so that they're no longer committing crime.
And my last question, Madam Chair, on the drug court position, is the elected public offender kind of co-existent with you on that position, where when you have the drug court, does the public defender work with you with the drug court situation?
Oh, yes, absolutely. The public defender is a partner of ours, and they also assign an individual. And I believe that does the county pay for some of that for the public defender, for drug court? I believe that you are funding the public. I can't say exactly to what extent or what the degree is.
Yes.
Yes. You got it.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner DeSabatino.
So, I just wanted to wrap this up. Does anyone want to second the flag on his 48,222 for the IT director share?
I'd rather wait till see the other two counties are going to fund it, because we'd be a third of the cost.
So do you have to flag it for a placeholder?
Well, I guess so I understand. Sarasota County has funded it.
Last year.
Right, but it's in their projected budget for this coming year. But just so you know, with DeSoto County, we carry DeSoto County. They just don't have the funds. So we carry DeSoto County.
Madam Chair, I'll second that flag for conversation later.
Okay.
I don't know where I'm going with that item, but I'm very supportive of the other two items, but for conversation we get more information on that, I will second that flag.
Okay, and then for flagging the dedicated full-time coordinator for Manatee County, the 42,267.
I did that.
We did that. And not the 23, we flagged the 159,022. And you might as well hit a home run with 3,042. If anyone wants to flag that, second.
Which one are you talking about?
The remote access cost for prosecutors' court technology,
No.
$3,000.
Jennifer, you want to?
Tag on that.
That $3,042 was part of our reoccurring budget year before last. It dropped off last year. That simply is for unforeseen equipment needs.
We received that information that said that, but Jennifer clarified just Monday that that's not what that is.
Right. Part of the description did include the unforeseen needs for equipment, but there was other language in there that should have been eliminated.
So, anyone want to second that or no?
Commissioner Sabatino, for the discussion till we get with our IT department, I will second that and keep that going until we get with our IT department. I talk with the county administrator on that, so.
Okay.
All right.
So as to the issue that Commissioner Whitmore raised, would you like me to follow up with, by letter or by somehow, about whether or not Sarasota County funds?
Madam Chair, if I can.
No, will fund.
That's what I'm saying, that they will fund. Would you like me to follow up with you about that when we learn about that?
We know there's 6 million in their budget shortfall for this budget, so I can't, I mean, I'd like to, they're gonna have to cut somewhere.
Okay. So we will follow up either way to let you know they
Commissioner
did fund it or they did not.
Yeah, Madam Chair,
Quickly,
that's
'cause
the
we need to move
why I flagged that exactly because of exactly what the state attorney just mentioned, until we get more information, because if they're not funding it, I don't know about us funding it, from that standpoint, but I want to keep it afloat, in this meeting.
And the state attorney is funding it now correctly out of the state funds.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
It is being funded, it's just that it's not coming out of our pockets.
I understand, and as I
So in
believe the
case
state
you
attorney
didn't get
mentioned,
it.
it's things that he can utilize.
All right, we do need to move on. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we have the Guardian ad litem next.
Ad litem?
Ad litem, thank you. Page 30.
Ad litem.
These buttons are.
Just light them. Light them up. Speak. Tell her.
Good afternoon.
You just got on.
I'm Tony Latorti. I'm the Circuit Director with the Guardian Ad Litem Program, and I have my Assistant Director, Nina Sumaling, and HR Budget Liaison, Stephanie Ogle. And we're here today to thank you for the position that and the support we get from the county. The only item that I would like to talk about is the increase of for our staff position of a little bit over $6,200. So we recently, last year in October of 2017, the state was able to get some key class positions of much-needed raises. And this position that Manatee County funds is one of our leadership positions. It's a Child Advocate Manager 2 position. And currently, the $6,200 is what is needed to bring the position up to what the other positions in the state make. So that's where I am. Any questions?
Commissioner Benek.
So this is a position that is funded by Manatee County,
Yes,
but your state employees got raises last year.
yes.
For the first time in
7 or 9.
10 years.
10 years. I've been here 12 and 10 years.
And county employees for the past
Every year.
4 years have gotten a 4% increase. So I don't get why you've got somebody that is behind.
I know that they get 4%, but I don't know if the position ever got the 4% every year. I don't know if Stephanie would be able to explain a little bit more, but the increase that this position got from the state, it was a $5,000 increase for the those positions. And at the time the increase happened, it was October of 2017. And the person who was in this position vacated at the end of October of 2017, so we were stuck with that current salary. And I don't know if you wanted to explain a little bit more what her question was. Why was
I
it so
think the
much
answer would
behind?
be,
Mr. Administrator?
Wait, Janelle.
Mr. Administrator, I think, go ahead, Ed.
I think I can have Rodney Barnes, our HR Director, look at this position. I can't tell you the title of it or what it pays. And he'll take a look at it and compare it to the salaries in the office of the ad litem folks, and we can report back to
So
you.
we need to flag it for.
So we just need to flag, okay.
I'll flag it.
All right, I'll second it.
Okay.
All right, so we'll look at it, see where we're at.
Because we've been trying to get the support and at least speak with someone in the office about the increase since October of last year, but we haven't had any success. I know that Commissioner Smith was interested in knowing more about the program and kind of supported it, but we've kind of hit a dead end, and it is one of our leadership positions. They supervise half of the staff in that office. As you know, Manatee County, I think most of our resources are here. We have 20 staff, and they supervise about 8 of those staff. So the position has been vacant. My assistant director has been filling in. It's a much needed position. We can't hire the position because the people they would be supervising makes more than they do.
Yeah.
So
That doesn't make sense, so.
No.
We will look at it. Thank you for coming here, and thank you for what y'all do. It's a
Commissioner
tough,
Smith.
tough
Yeah,
job.
Madam
I
Chair,
still have the floor.
thank you. This lovely young lady and her staff met with me on concerning this issue and the fact that it's causing turmoil in their situation, because when someone finds out actually what's going on, they can't keep anybody there. It's just a rotating spot, and they was asking for help. Yeah, I believe we met sometime October, at least last year, on this issue.
Yes.
And so I'm glad they're here today to move forward and to let the county commission know what they're going through. It's a small item, but it's still taxpayers' money, but certainly we need to look at this, and it may be a technicality. And when we flag the SACA, that means it's still afloat until the county administrator gets some more information on this issue. So as Commissioner Benak mentioned, it don't make sense to me, so maybe we'll get some more understanding with it. So I'm glad that we decided to flag it.
we do have some information to leave with you today. We probably don't have enough. I wasn't sure how many people would be up here, but I'll send it this way or.
Just mainly them, they're the ones.
Okay, I'll send it this
Any
way.
other,
No, it's about guardian ad.
Commissioner Ball?
No, ma'am, I'm not.
Oh, okay. All right, we thank you very much, and we're still looking into it. So we have property appraiser,
Thank you.
page 38.
I thought so. It's all about the guardian ad fund.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've gotten it.
Good afternoon.
How you doing, Charlie?
I'm good. I'm glad to be here today. As you are aware, our budget is actually approved by the Department of Revenue. We have submitted our budget as of June 1st in accordance with the requirements of them. At the time we submitted that budget, we also sent each of you a copy of that budget so you would be aware of where we're going. Basically, we have 3 things that are increasing in our budget. The requirement for health insurance premiums, the requirement for retirement premiums, and the increase in salaries in accordance with the county's policy to do that. We have one other thing in our budget this year, and that is pictometry, which is aerial photography. We do that every other year, so that was not in our budget last year, but is in our budget this year. And with Jan's help, we have implemented a program where we're splitting that cost 6 ways throughout the county. So everybody's using it, and we're splitting the cost of that. So we have no new positions. We have no major capital outlay. So
We love you.
We love you for that,
that's pretty
yes.
much it. So I'd be glad to answer any questions.
See you later.
No questions.
Bye.
See you next year.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
We would like for you to leave.
Thank you very much.
The bigger the check you can give us in October, the better, though.
Yeah, remember, yeah, wait till October, we'll see what he
Very
does.
succinct.
Okay.
Like always.
Clerk of the Circuit Court, page 57.
Oh, Angel's getting nervous now.
All right, Angel, see if you can beat that.
She has one ask.
I know.
Angel, you got your work cut out for you.
She has one ask.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I really wish I went before Charlie. Normally, that's our ask too, is our base budget. We don't change. The only thing additional that we are asking this year, the cost of living increase, but 2 part-time positions for our park in Palmetto, the historic park, the agriculture museum, and the Palmetto Historic Park side. We've actually have 2 people in each one working. But on top of that, we have 13,000 park attendees a year, 1,600 tour visitors each year. They're getting stretched so thin that it's getting hard for them to keep up with collections, put out new exhibits, which of course, as you all know, and they help the board, and that brings donors, which means I won't have to come ask for so much money. This is the first time in a long time we've ever had to ask for two part-time positions or anything additional at all to our budget. But that would be the additional amount of $45,678 that we're seeking. Other than that, our base budget actually came in slightly less than last year. But that, very slightly less, but less is less. So that's 7.3. But we are asking respectfully for the $45,678 for 2 part-time people, one for each of those buildings out there, parks, the Palmetto Park and the Agricultural Museum.
As a person that spends a lot of time in both those buildings, I was surprised when I didn't see them on the budget, because these people do a lot of work. I can contest to that. And so I would like to flag this item.
Second that.
Okay. Commissioner Benak.
Well, and I have to ask, because I know that you have great volunteers. Is this really something that volunteers could not do? I mean, when I go to the hospital, I'm amazed at the number of volunteers that check you in. You know, I talk to them all, I ask, are you paid people? And they're not. They're all volunteers that work there because they have love. And I know the people at the museums have the Ag Museum, I know you get a lot of volunteers. Is it really something that we couldn't rely on volunteers to do?
For curating, curators, and collections, we owe a care and custody to our donors. So on that respect, there's also internship management, because we have an intern that comes in. These are things that you can't have volunteers. And we also need volunteer management out there as it is to manage the volunteers. And when you're talking to people in each area to do that, and with their events and the crowds that they've been drawing, it becomes, they're stretched about as thin as they can. Also, board development and planning. Volunteers really can't do that. It's got to be the staff that helps with the boards and planning. It's not a matter of just doing the tours. It's a matter of also curating and creating new exhibits. And the volunteers act at the direction of the employees.
Okay.
Commissioner Whitmore.
The only reason why I supported flagging it is it's $177 less than last year. If it was higher, I would agree with Betsy, but it's.
78, you were out.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, if it was 178, forget it, but it's actually less than last year's budget, so for $178.
And I respectfully.
177 less.
And respectfully, if anybody needs additional consideration, I think in the 2.5, going on 3 years now, I've given back just under $5 million to the county in our fees. So I've given back a significant amount to the county. If you could respectfully consider that as well.
Think about some of those fees going to some of these positions that we're trying to fund.
Well, they're non-recurring funds, so I can't,
I'm just trying to
unfortunately.
come up with a revenue source. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you. Angel?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, supervisor of election.
He's not here, is he?
Yes.
All right.
Didn't ask for anything.
I did have a question for him.
I
He's not
did too.
here.
I've got a couple of questions I'd like to ask him too.
Question even though he's not here?
Where's the full percent?
I mean, who's going to answer it? You want me to answer it?
My question is a bit rhetorical. I was just going to ask him, how does he, in a growing population, continue to keep his cost level? I want to know. It's a secret we need to know.
Responsible. He always has been.
Technology is the answer, I believe.
Technology.
I believe
Go by
technology is the
mail
answer.
They've updated.
So we all have a lesson to learn from that, just saying.
But I have a
Doesn't he
question,
get his,
All right.
Madam Chair.
It's totally not,
To Commissioner Benak's point,
it's never.
to me, I would have loved to ask the senator some questions. We are recommending 4%, and specifically when it's a statewide race where we can ask questions on, to your point, he hasn't increased his budget, to my understanding. Is the election gonna be smooth? What could we expect? That's why it's important for him at least to give us a presentation, so we'll be aware of what's taking place in case something happens, and, that we wasn't informed
It's
in
gonna
this
be
meeting.
smooth.
I think Mike Bennett would tell us, trust me, one
Well,
way or the other.
It's, you read the paper statewide and you see all these innuendos going forward, and then the government finally has sent money down. That'd have been nice for us to kind of understand what was going on with that.
Okay, all right, Sheriff, you're on. Come on down.
Come on down.
I'm pulling the heads 4% if you don't show up.
Oh, boy.
I get eat up on the campaign.
Good afternoon. How are y'all doing? I want to first of all thank Angel and Charlie for allowing their funding to come my way. We talked about that earlier, and I really do appreciate the fine work that they do.
That was my thought.
I believe we have a video we're going to show you real quick. Is that when you go out east, it doesn't take long before you realize that this county is growing at an alarming rate. Back 25 years ago, if you went east of the interstate, you saw nothing but trees and cows. We are far past that. It's going to go up. It goes up every year because the population continues to grow.
Here's an area we're passing right now that used to be a farm, a dairy farm, I believe, and it's all been knocked down. The land's been cleared for, I believe, another subdivision. A lot more homes going in over here, too. A lot of construction going on.
People want to live here in Manatee County. That's great for the economy, but that growth causes us to lag behind a little bit. All you have to do is just drive out east, and you can see the housing developments that are popping up all over the place. That's just going to put more demand on the deputies that work that zone. And one deputy in a zone means that we got one deputy in some areas covering 10 miles. That's not good policing.
181, you're on 15. Our deputies are responding to calls all day, every day.
368,000 calls a year.
Lincoln 107, 152. I went ahead and attached the name of the possible suspect.
Over 1,000 calls per day. That's what we're serving out here. That's what we are responding to. That's taken away from all of the community policing that we once did here in Manatee County, and we got to get back to that somehow, some way.
I've got at any given time, like during the day, I could have 8 or 9 deputies covering this whole east and north sector of the county. I can tell by looking at the lineup here what some of the deputies are on right now. I've got 2 deputies on an alarm call. I have 1 deputy at it's a death investigation. I've got a couple deputies investigating an animal complaint. I've only got 1 deputy who is not on a call right now. Everybody is on a call for service, and that is constant throughout the day.
It causes us to be more of a defensive mode type of police agency, a law enforcement agency, than proactive. We've got to make sure that we have deputies in place that are able to get back into the neighborhoods, talk to the people, spend a little time with them, find out what their issues are, and then go to the next house. Right now, when you see a deputy, they're leaving a call or they're coming to your community to answer a complaint. We don't want to just be responding. We want to prevent that complaint from ever occurring. Unfortunately, we can't do that now because we've got to make sure that the deputy gets to the next call that's already holding.
And are you at that location now?
Our number one concern is that of public safety, and we want to deter crime, and our deputies would love nothing more than to be able to get into these neighborhoods and be visible. But a lot of times we're not able to do that for the mere fact that we're going from call to call to call. We're just too busy.
We're not going to be able to continue to drive crime down if we don't get the help we need. We got to get more deputies in those areas, and we appreciate the 10 that we got last year. We really do. but we have to continue to focus on how we're going to handle the growth of Manatee County. How are we going to keep our community safe?
I want to thank Randy Warren sitting in the back for putting this together, and Captain Bob Mealy, who was out there in your district, Commissioner Ball.
Sheriff. Actually, it looked great.
Because the rest of us have no crime.
Yeah, exactly, that's where it's all at, eh?
Of course, one of the guys looked like he was speeding.
Well, you know what, in that case, Commissioners, I'll be happy to take all the deputies out east. No problem.
I'll just charge it to your account.
Well, we pay anyway.
All right, so I know you have everything in front of you and the county administrator's rebuttal to some of the positions that we have discussed. So just real quickly, we'll go over this. On the enforcement side, you know, we're looking at 18 road deputies that we need. Also, we want to put in an additional 4 correction deputies. Now, I want to talk about these 2 road deputies on Anna Maria. We're not funding that, just so you know. That's coming 100% from Anna Maria. They have taken a proactive response here. They want more deputies in their city, and they're paying for those. So, you know, that they're on there, but we're not having to spend any money on that. Traffic deputies, every single one of you send me emails about traffic issues. It's right. I mean, it's a problem in Manatee County. You can't get anywhere in Manatee County without seeing aggressive driving, speeding, you name it, it's there. You've heard me say this before, but the fact that the Florida Highway Patrol is very short.
Oh, here it goes.
Oh, he must be.
Hey, let me tell you something. Hey, real quick, you need to take a seat. So, you know, we're having to pick up close to 150 crashes every month, which is something we never had to deal with before because FHP is trying to build their staff up. They are in dire need of additional personnel.
Right.
So we're looking for at least 4 more traffic deputies. And these are a lot of the positions that we had asked for last year as well. 2 CSOs, community service officers, and those are the civilians that you see in the pickup trucks, and they just help the deputies handle all of the tasks that take additional time for a deputy to perform. Fingerprints, you know, your minor calls, picking up property and evidence, traffic control, doing a lot of things that allow the deputy to continue to focus on answering the calls and doing what they need to do. The 27 SROs, we don't need to talk about that. That's already been dealt with. So, you know, we know that we're not funding that. Corrections, asking for 4 corrections deputies once again. Understand, and I know that you do, if you want to talk about population, if you want to talk about growth, then you're going to have to deal with, you know, the arrests that come from that. And that means that we've got people coming into the jail. We work with the state attorney. We work with the other treatment facilities. We do everything we can to get people out. I mean, we want to make sure that we're dealing with mental illness. We're dealing with those that are addicted to drugs. We put those people into special areas where we can deal with the problem that they're having, as well as the criminal side. We want to get them into the areas that they can receive the best help. But with the Investigative Bureau, we have made a significant impact on the opioid epidemic in Manatee County. And one of the reasons that we've been able to do that is we've arrested over 46 drug traffickers and drug dealers in Manatee County with a total of 120 plus federal indictments. So we went to the federal side. Okay, so we have, right now we're about 75% down on deaths related to overdoses and the overdoses themselves. So we made a significant impact. We also spent a lot of time with victims of this epidemic, which is just as important, more so, in getting them treatment, going to that call when they do overdose, and we have to bring them back with Narcan, trying to help them right then and there. The cold case detective, we just solved a cold case. I'm sure you saw that a couple months ago, and that's important that we continue to go back and re-examine these homicide cases and try to make arrests. As you know, DNA becomes better. We have better evidence that we're able to put through the system and help get that predator or that suspect identified. There's constantly changes with sexual offenders and predators and the way that they have to report, and we need some help here. Now, if you are a sexual offender and you want to leave your county and go to another county for a vacation for more than 3 days, you got to report to us. Well, that means that we have to pick up the slack, and we have to have all of these people reporting to us and making sure the documentation is the way it should be and monitoring them until they go back to their home county. One chemist. We have, as you should already know, I know you do, we handle all of the narcotics that come through the Manatee County Sheriff's Office, Braden PD, Palmetto, and the beaches. We analyze those drugs. We make sure that they're ready for the state attorney. The state attorney relies on us heavily. And why don't we send those to FDLE? Because we can't wait for FDLE to get that done 8, 9, 12 months. Right. This evidence has to be ready for court. And the prosecutor has to know, yes, this is real cocaine. This is heroin. You know, they can't prosecute the case if they don't know exactly what the drug is. And even though we know, because they have been tested in the field, it still has to be done by a chemist. He's overloaded. We need another one. Crime scene technician. I want you to think, if you can, you know that we have a crime scene tech that goes to every homicide, all the violent crimes, but they go to much more than that. They go to every robbery. They go to every significant burglary where evidence has to be taken and photographs have to be taken. I mean, they do a lot of work. So, once again, increase in population. We're seeing the effect because these men and women are being put through the ringer every day, and they get tired, and they have a lot of work to do. On the executive side, once again, this is from last year, we're looking for a community relations deputy. Basically, it's a recruiter, and then a mechanic. We need additional mechanics, asking for one. Our fleet continues to grow as the county continues to grow, as the force continues to grow. So we just want to try to keep up with the demand here in Manatee County. And I would ask you this during this budget process. Go out into your district one night, ride around, and then the next day I want you to call me to tell me what you saw. And then I'll tell you everything you didn't see. Okay? So do that for me and let me know what you see when you're out there. I'm going to pass it over to Neil now. Thank you all.
Thank you, Sheriff. Very quickly, just have a few more slides and then we'll take questions. Again, our personal services are based on what the county administrator recommended. 4% increase, salaries, health insurance, cost going up. Our FRS rates for our certified and civilian went up. And then the additional personnel that we've requested, it's $5.6 million of all those positions. That's not the recommended, that's just the requested. That's not clicking. You want to click?
Neil?
Yeah.
I just want to ask a quick question on that slide. You have the one previous, you have 5.6, is that without the SROs?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
Because it was over 9.8
Yes.
million or so with the
Can you go back to
SROs.
that, please? How did you get that one? We're showing 4.7.
I think I can help. Neil, the 4.7 is for existing officers that have the 4%
Yeah,
health insurance, 4% raise, and your FRS rates.
correct.
And then commissioners, on the sheet of paper you have where it goes down to the additions, that's what I just asked him about. Neil shows 5.6 and you show 9.8, but yours has the additional request of the SROs in there of 29.
'Cause we had to submit this back in May 1st, so we had all of that included before those situations were taken care of. Okay.
Got it.
All right, and this is just a reminder, when we do starting deputy salaries, we like to compare to the area to see what our competition is doing. We're sitting right in the middle of that group. We've been anywhere from 7 to 10 over time. We continue to stay right in there, but it's just a reminder that the starting deputy's salary is very important in terms of competition. What I don't have here, as we grow into sergeants and lieutenants, we're finding that more and more counties and other agencies around us are bumping those up. So the competition is getting very stiff, and we're having to look at our compensation package as they grow in rank all the way through. Next.
It's nice to see us in the middle.
Yeah.
We're the fourth highest county.
Just very quickly on our major operating expenses. Again, there's only a $600,000 difference, but if you took out non-recurring items that were in there last year, we increased about 1.1 million. Primary increase is in our maintenance agreements. There we have a very large technical refresh on our Cogent software for around $275,000. That's fingerprints. We have fingerprint other maintenance agreement on those for about $120,000. Microsoft 365 cloud maintenance agreement as we progress our technology is around $145,000. And then there were other escalations in our maintenance agreements from the past. Vehicle repairs continue to go up. It was up at least $100,000, and it's going up substantially more, and that is, again, why we asked for the fleet mechanic. We feel that getting that mechanic will be a cost benefit in terms of our having to outsource some of those repairs that we do. Uniforms have gone up quite a bit. We have some expiring vests for our deputies, about $150,000 that we have to get replaced. And then there's just other expenses that have gone up.
Can I
Yeah.
go back the previous slide? Is that okay, Madam Chair? I'm trying to. So what it looks like, well, others did. We're the fourth highest county as far as salary in the state. Well, as far as I can see, as far as with this list, correct? The cities are probably paying more because they're competing with the counties. Is that correct? We're the fourth highest county on this list for salaries. It never used to be like that. That's why I'm.
We've always been sitting right around fourth,
No.
fifth, sixth.
Doobie.
Sarasota and Collier and those, we're very close in those, and we have moved up over the last few years. Yes, we've
Yeah,
moved up.
because I remember when Sheriff Stubbe came, we were pretty far down, and he let us know it. So, okay, thank you.
Okay, next one. And just a slide on our capital expenditures. Autos and trucks, those are the amount we budget for replacements for our current fleet. Our current practice is to try and rotate out vehicles that have at least 120,000 miles on them, and sometimes we've gone up 140,000 on those. Have any major or recurring repairs, so that we want to make sure the cost benefit is worth going there. Included in some other equipment are some CF31 computers. That's our tough books that are in the cars for the deputies. We're trying to replace those on a 6 or 7 year cycle, so we have a number of those in there. Our SWAT ballistic level vests are also expiring, and we need to replace those. Property and evidence, we're running out of space in our area, so we're trying to request some space savers that will get us a few more years out of those. And I know on the IST, we have a property and evidence building in there, so we're trying to get our way through all of that before that's built. And finally, we have some Cogent AFIS hardware, just as we had the software technical refresh. Again, we need the hardware in order to do the refresh, and we have an amount in there for that other equipment. Next slide.
Can I ask on that slide?
Yep.
Oh, back up then, okay.
The fleet maintenance, Sheriff, I know we've talked in the past with the former sheriff about would he even consider us all working together and as one fleet maintenance, as we're rated one of the best in the country. And it's always been an absolute no. I'm just trying to think if could be duplicative services, if there's a way that we all could work together to try to get the costs down and yet give you the service that you need. Has that been explored at all? We've offered to do this, and it's been no for quite a few years. Ed probably can confirm that. we brought it up publicly at previous budget meetings about consolidating the fleet services so that for maintenance, we've just expanded our maintenance center and it's just always been a no. I'm just trying to think of a way to cut some costs down.
Well, I've never had that conversation with the administrator. I'm not really sure what services they would be able to perform. You're talking about your typical oil changes and stuff of that nature?
Your your fleet maintenance. What you're doing now, you have your own department. We've tried to, in the past, merge them. Ed, maybe you may want to.
I'm sure that
About
they're
it
just as
last year.
overloaded as we are, but maybe you got something
But if
more
we're
to
both
tell me
doing the
than
same thing, maybe we can be more efficient and less.
Well, I don't think we'll settle that one today. Maybe we
No,
can get
no.
together and chat about that.
Yeah, we can talk about it, though.
Yeah, we've talked about it.
We'll sit
in the
down.
past. Thank you.
Okay, I guess that's all we have. I'd like to thank our command staff and our fiscal coordinators for their help in putting this together, as well as Jan Brewer and her staff for their help in pulling this all together. We appreciate all the assistance we've been provided over time.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yeah, thank you, Sheriff, and Neil, and I'm not even sure where I'm going on this conversation at the moment.
Well, just keep on going. I'll catch up with you. We're all right.
He'll pull you over.
It's above my pay grade to sit there and try to micromanage all these different things and so forth. And kind of my thought is, if we looked at your proposed budget, or, and we take out the costs that we know we're going to give you, the 4% pay raise, the FRS, all that stuff, and then we come back and basically say, look, we'll increase and pick a number. I mean, right now, you're at like 5.2%, which we know is probably woefully inadequate. So the question is, do we sit there and say, well, let's come up with a lump sum and then let you divide it up, if that makes sense at all? Whether it's another, taking this budget, I think there's about a $6.8 million difference between what you got last year and what you're kind of proposing this year. So I'm just trying to figure out how you can simplify it.
Are you
for us
saying
up here.
basically you give me a number, I agree on that number, then I make it fit?
Whatever you want with it.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
And you spend it, with whether you want.
Whatever
correction.
positions I can get out of it, I make that decision.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
I don't, I'm just an idea as to how to, rather than, saying, well, you don't need 4 corrections officers, we'll give you 3.
Right.
I know, I
And go through that whole
we can
thing.
make that work, Commissioner. In fact, we can vote on that today.
Like I said, I don't know what my other, that's
I
just
know, I'm-
from my, it just seemed like it would be versus us going through
That's what he's
each one of
elected
these
to
line
do.
items.
I know, I understand. I think that's an adequate approach. I think we could make that work if you can agree as a
You get 4 of us, yeah.
commission, yeah.
Well, I don't know, I mean, either that or we could just flag this whole budget, and then,
Minus those 2 items,
Excuse me?
minus those 2 big items.
the 2 big items.
SROs or what?
The 4.3 for the school.
And let everybody
resource.
think about it, and then
Right.
come back with a number that everybody thinks will work in the,
Sounds easy.
I'll second that flag.
Yeah.
He just flagged your whole budget.
That's 3.
We're done.
Figure it out by budget time.
Commissioner Whitmore?
No, I flagged it. My button's not working.
Oh, Commissioner
It's like
Benek.
on
Okay, I
spasm.
want to make sure I understand what we're talking about here, because you lost me a bit. So, what we have proposed, recommended today, a 6.2% increase over last year's budget, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, so what you're saying.
5.2%.
6.2.
6.2, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it's 6.2.
But you have to-
Okay,
Well,
that's
you
why I
have
was
to
a little lost.
Well, if you have to deduct that
Bottom
number
of the
out. But anyway,
page, 6.2.
let's
Oh,
just
he's
say,
deducting the other.
But that's
To
including.
deducting the 4%
But
stuff
that-
that.
right.
Doesn't that include the SROs for the school?
No, because
No.
you look at
No,
the
they're
last
not included.
column.
Correct.
Yeah.
So what is
Okay.
it, 5 or 6?
6.2 is what we're showing on our paperwork. What does that not
Sold.
include or include?
That does include the SROs that are in existence.
Oh, okay.
What it does not include are the additional officers that the sheriff went over. And the additional operating increases. We had our operating at 387, which is 3%. They went over almost 1.2, right, Neil?
Correct. Yeah, you're recommending 3% increase over last year's budget.
And then in the capital leases, they were looking at 466, and you gave them 415.
Which is again a 3% increase over last year's base.
Okay, all right, so I understand, I guess, what your recommendation is. And if I understood, you're happy with that?
Yeah, he should be able to do it.
I think that if we worked out a number, right, together,
We don't really.
as just one big happy family that we are, and
Whatever you want.
and then we took that amount of money and we spread it out and made it work with the positions that we feel are the most important. Yes.
It's your
Well,
budget.
and as I understand it, the way that we came up with the 10 additional deputies, the
Well-
way we came up with that was because we looked at the ratio of, and correct me if I'm wrong, we looked at the ratio of law enforcement ratio per thousand population, where we're at 1.41 deputies per thousand population. We took the population increase from last year, and that's how we came up with 10. So you were at a ratio, which is actually, it's about, it's higher than Sarasota, it's higher than Lee, it's higher than Collier, it's higher than Hernando, it's higher than Pasco, it's higher than Hillsborough, it's higher than Citrus, it's higher than Polk. So it is a decent ratio. And this is the Florida Department of Law Enforcement numbers that we're
I'm a
utilizing.
little bit disappointed it doesn't say that where it's from, though.
Well, it says
I'm
law
sorry.
enforcement ratios. That's Florida Department of Law Enforcement
Put that on there,
ratio.
yes,
It
ma'am.
doesn't say that.
Yes, ma'am.
So we said, okay, if that's where we're at, and if we think that that's a good ratio, we're pretty high relative to the other counties, why don't we just figure out, based on population growth, keep that ratio, and that's where we came up with the 10. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Just so that you,
And no disrespect, but I don't believe that number is where we need to be. I don't believe 1.4 is an adequate number to cover the demand in this county. I think every county is based upon, is different. They have different issues, they have different density, they have different population, economic levels. So you can't compare Sarasota County with Manatee.
No, you can't.
They've got 4 or 5 different municipalities. They're unincorporated area of Sarasota is smaller than Manatee.
Right.
So these numbers really don't mean anything to me. What means the most to me is knowing how much area we have to cover in Manatee County, and we're not there.
okay.
Okay.
That's fair.
An argument.
Yeah, I like Steve's proposal.
Well, I do too, but I think, I think the big question is, what's the number?
Right.
How are we going to come up with this number, and that's why I brought this up, because we're trying to come up with a way to come up with a number. I have no doubt that you have needs, I agree. I agree to flagging, especially things like crime scene technician, no doubt. I mean, as our population grows, you have more needs. The question that we always have when we do this budget every single year is, how do we balance the needs throughout the entire county? Because the reality is, the growth affects every department in the county. And yes, public safety is number one. But as I hear our county administrator say, if we say that every year, well, what's number two, and what happens to them? We've got to make that decision. That's why I get paid the big bucks up here, to try to figure out how are we going to cover these needs. And we know that our Public Works Department, they've been, they become almost emergency responders when they're out there digging up ditches because people are going to flood. We can't separate everything, so we've got to have some sort of rationale about how we make these decisions. Your video was excellent. Only thing I didn't like is you called it awful growth. What would you say? Alarming.
Alarming.
Growth.
Well, it's alarming for us. It's great for the economy. It's great for everything that we want to see in a flourishing
unintended.
community. But for us, when you can't keep up with that growth, it's alarming. It's alarming to have one deputy covering 10 and that sometimes 20 miles. That's an officer safety issue for me, and that's also not proactive. That's not policing. So that, we know that this county is going to continue to grow. I know we have issues with what may and what is probably going to occur with the homestead exemption next year. Well, that's just going, in my opinion, and we've got experts in the House, I'm sure, that's just going to allow more people to buy a house. That's going to help them. That's going to make that decision for them. You're going to see more homes being built and people wanting to move into homes because now they got a little extra help. And so that's not going to solve the problem of growth, I tell you that.
Thank you. And I appreciate that. I mean, I like to say, we don't have the ability to tell people that they can't move here. That's not what happens in the United States of America. People want to move here. They have the right to do so. Therefore, it becomes our responsibility to figure out how to deal with all these impacts of growth. We don't get to just say no because it's too expensive, or no because, we don't have the resources. We've got to figure it out, charge accordingly, and that's our job, so.
And I want you to understand, every constitutional, every department head is going to come up here and they're going to fight for their section, right? They're going to fight for their job and what is going on, because I know that Public Works and every other entity is struggling just like us. But we got to protect lives and property, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Commissioner Ball.
In looking at this map that we just received, I'm looking at the same population areas. Volusia, 1.95. St. Lucie, 2.66. Osceola, 1.89. So, there are other counties with the same type of population that's higher than we are. And the other thing I want to bring up is I've lived in Sarasota for 10 years. I lived in Manatee for as long, if not longer. And you can't really, I know that, you really can't compare the two. And I realize that you mentioned the municipalities in Sarasota, but, for me, it's not even that so much as it's just a whole different type of county. So I think it is hard to sit back and say, well, in Sarasota, they're at 1.34, and, I don't think we can look at it that way truly, because the two counties are so, so different. But, at the same time, I want to say thank you to your department for them being so gracious to me and my family back at Christmas. You guys got a blessing. And
Glad we could be there.
I got to tell you, we sit here and we're looking at these positions that you're looking for. And, again, we don't realize sitting up here what these different positions mean until all of a sudden you need them one day. And then you go, oh, you realize how important, because you take yourself away from a governing body where you're trying to figure out a budget and you put yourself into the situation of being a citizen with a family. So I'm kind of with Steve. I wish that we could come up with some solution here on the budget, because I know that it's hard for us. I mean, we have the whole county that we've got to think about, and yet we know that you've got your hands full in this county with your job for law enforcement. And yes, I'm blessed. And I loved every one of those pictures being out east. I was very proud. One proud mama sitting here. But I'm looking for a substation still too, out east. And I know that one of the reasons we haven't had it yet is because of the budget. So I'm with everyone else, I think, sitting up here. I think we need to look closely at your budget and figure out what we can do to make sure that we keep the citizens as safe as possible, and still being able to do all the other things that we have in this county that we need to take care of. So, Steve, put your thinking cap on, sir.
Commissioner Whitmore?
One at that.
No, my light's going through spasms.
Commissioner DeSabatino?
They're all doing
Touching
it.
it.
They're all kind of doing it. But
Steve's is too.
Commissioner DeSabatino?
So, I'm a big fan, and, as you said, whenever we call you, send you an email, send you a message or whatever, you respond right away. Or you send it down the chain to where it needs to go. So we really appreciate that.
Yep.
And I know crime is down in South County, and there's not a day that goes by that wherever I am, I don't see a car driving around. Especially now we have the new 44th. And in the beginning, you needed to get that speed under control and people to change their little habits because they tended to go very fast. I think they've kind of adjusted at this point, but, so you're everywhere. So I just, I guess it's a question between you and Jan. What is the total, ask? And then
Minus the SROs.
minus the 4.3 and the 380. And then, like I ask every year, what does that equate for the millage? What does that equate for a household of 150, 200, 300, and difference per year? In case, I'm just saying, in case we can't find money in the budget and we need to adjust it, we need to know what the additional millage would be. Make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh,
Go ahead, Jan.
I have a question.
Want me to answer?
You have the question answered?
Yeah,
Have the answer.
So if you remove the 27 and the 2, Neil, I come up with 130.8 million, roughly.
It's reasonable.
So the difference between the two, and you're asking the difference between what we have in the budget versus that?
What you recommended.
Yes, the
20
recommended versus what
Minus
the ask.
126, 712, right?
There goes the
4.1
6.9.
million.
What I had.
So there goes the 6 point, no, that's
Okay,
6.9.
so 4.1, so what would the millage be is
What I
what
had.
she was asking you also, if we did
Okay,
decide to do
so,
that.
yeah, for 4.1 million, if we funded every single thing, what would be the millage?
Give me 1 second. I have to pull up another worksheet.
She's a wizard.
While she's looking at that, Madam Chair?
Oh, no, you didn't, just push a button here.
I
There's lots of
did.
other
I
folks.
have this time. Okay.
Yeah, but you're not there yet. Commissioner Smith, can you say something quick while we're waiting to let Jan?
I haven't even talked yet. I can't say anything quick on this
Yeah,
issue.
you can't say nothing quick. You know better than that.
Admits it, I love it.
Let's go.
Commissioner Whitmore, Commissioner Whitmore, can you?
Mine will be quick. I'm a
All right,
fast talker.
Commissioner Whitmore?
The 6.9 that we have, is this only, the non-reoccurring money we have, it's non-reoccurring. That would be the money we have, but it's only non-recurring. Because we are preparing for the $11.1 million decrease we're gonna have in 2020 of our revenue.
Correct.
So Ed, I know he looks like he's having a stroke over there, but,
It's your money.
I know, and that's what we gotta figure out. Just remember, all that we've heard for the last week, and then what we've heard today from everyone, where's that extra revenue, where that come besides a tax increase? Ed or Jan?
Jan's calculating.
Ed,
She's busy.
is that the only revenue? And Sheriff, does the sheriff have any reserves? Do you have 20% reserves? Do you have more than 20%? What about that money that we
We return all of our fees and excess fees.
Well, that's what I was
We have
gonna
no
say.
reserve.
And so we rely on those excess fees to meet our budget, right, Ed?
Yes.
So that means we can't use that, so we just all need to be open on this, so, to figure out the revenue
Dave?
Or our reserves.
or our reserves.
It's about 1.5 that we've been turning in back to the county every year. Is that correct?
And if we use our,
1.2, 1.5?
if we use our reserves, are we going below our 20% that we keep to keep our triples, our
Well, your
rating?
reserves are, again, one-time money for ongoing
I
expenses.
know that.
So that's 2.6
What we're talking
difference.
about, this is recurring.
Oh, I know, totally. Just trying to think of a revenue or
I'm
a
assuming if we
source.
hire them, we'll need to hire them next year also.
And we're gonna crash in 20, so we need to see, do we have those revenues to pay for
Exactly.
everything that we're doing now? You figure it out. You're the banker.
Jan's calculating.
Say it. Steve acts like he has the answer.
You what?
Have the money.
They're going crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Are you guys doing that too? Is it blinking on you?
Yeah, it's all crazy.
Wow.
Because technically, I don't think you want to be on the board,
I think it's
do you?
like Morse code.
Oh, you are, but I didn't think you wanted to be.
Say something.
All right, Jan, when you get it, go.
I'm trying.
No, I thought you were,
No, I'm just double checking myself. So 1 mil, based upon your current rates, is 1 mil is 190 million.
We don't wanna trying to 1
Yeah,
mil.
let me calculate.
Rick's
Let me,
like, I'll
let
take-
me, give me a
yeah.
moment
Rick's
and I'll
like, I'll
come
take
back.
that.
Well, it could be like the school board.
What,
That's what you're talking about.
1 mil?
Yeah, go ahead and do, we'll be the school board. Not this kid. I don't vote for tax increases. No.
They won't recognize me in here. I'm just sitting.
I called your name, but you said you weren't quick.
I haven't since 98.
I
I
mean, I
haven't
didn't.
voted for an increase.
Go ahead,
since
let me.
98.
Well, go ahead. All right, you can,
Let me get the information from her.
okay, I mean, I called you
But you
before.
said to be quick, though.
No, I
He's
was,
not quick.
go ahead and start until she gets done. So go ahead and start.
Be forever.
I'll be quick.
Okay.
He said he'll be quick. He's got the answer.
Go ahead,
You
Commissioner
know,
Johnson.
again, I think, after, I mean, I understand what Jan's doing, but, again, under what, I guess my concept is for Jan just to, because she's the whiz gal around here with the numbers, and putting together just an Excel spreadsheet that we kind of know where the base number is, and then just looking from that base number, and she can work with Neil and just, say, okay, if we go up 6%, or if maybe it's easier to do it in lump sum. Give them another million, $500,000 or $1 million or $1.5 million, and let them,
You
and
could-
then we'll make a decision as to what that amount should be, and then let them divvy it up among their positions or whatever they want to do with it.
You can just flag the sheriff's budget today. When you come back
We already
together,
did
we
that.
have
The
a,
whole budget we've flagged.
yeah,
did
and
that.
we'll just come back with some data about what millage increases will cover what.
But what are, and other options?
Missed that part. There isn't any of those.
Well, then your
There's balanced
abilities are limited.
budget. Right.
0.12, roughly 0.12,
Okay, go ahead, Jan.
0.12 mils.
in the general fund.
1.12 mil.
0.12, which makes 0.12 mils.
Added to the millage that's there right now.
And what would that be like per average household?
What would that be?
On an average household.
On an average household?
Right.
And we do for less. Well, they'll give it to you for 100,000, which the average is 225.
You'll just add to the issue of why the people on Longboat would want to go south.
Okay, so.
Yeah, Liquid Ranch might want to as well.
That'd be true.
Ed, in your entire 50 years, didn't you tell me you've never recommended a budget to the commission with a tax increase
Correct.
in 50 years?
About 20 bucks. About $20.
The answer to that is $20
$20.
on a $150,000 home. So if you're,
150,000.
if you're 300,000, it's $40.
Keep going.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, keep
All
going.
right, Charles? Thank you, Jan, that was very quick and hopefully accurate.
I would like to make sure it's very accurate, so I'll make sure we.
We'll send
redo
you
all this.
numbers
Yes.
this week.
Thank you.
I have the floor, Madam Chair.
Uh-oh.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I could have cut this a little short. Sheriff, now you find out who really love public safety. When you talk about millage increase, when you talk about tax increase, your friends on this dais, oh, we need this and need this, knowing all the time that you're gonna have to do something out of the ordinary, millage, tax increase. This commissioner, contrary to what people say on social media, being anti-law enforcement, has supported the increase in millage for public safety every year I've been up here. So ain't no sense in me wasting your time with my colleagues, pushing it back to the county administrator, and he know, and we know, there's gonna have to be a millage increase. I do like what the Commissioner Johnson said. There may be some funds that we can use, and you make the decision where you see fit this year. Now, so let's cut through the chase. If it's $20 for 150,000 property value, if it's 300,000 for the house, it's $40. Okay, so where are we at on that?
Look at me.
No. We're saying what we need to do for law enforcement, and we have flagged this entire budget. Neil, the county administrator, can work on several proposals And then from that standpoint, we collectively can do what needs to be done if the county administrator say, well, I got $1 million.
Oh, yeah.
I got 1.2, we don't have to raise any taxes. Then the sheriff got additional money.
Has to be recurring.
I understand that, but I understand that. Any good accountant, which I'm not one, but I just understand how it works, he has some opportunities where there's some money there. You remember now, we do have the homestead exemption. We do have projects that we have to fund, and some of them may be overrun. So that's my challenge. We've red flagged the budget. We've agreed.
We red flagged it.
Yeah, it was 7 people who
No,
say.
we don't call it red flag, but we did this
Yeah,
one.
So, and we have the information, Sheriff, what has basically been presented to us, and so, if you can get together with them to find out with several recommendations that we can do to come close to what you're asking for, at least close to what you're asking for, and I think Commissioner Johnson is absolutely correct. You decided to elect the sheriff, if we come up with additional money, what you see that can actually, work for you this year. And certainly, I support what you're doing. I do know the homestead exemption and the problems we're having, and the county is growing. And our employees, thank God, they've been getting raises at least since I've been here, I believe. They've been getting raises every year, so they deserve to get raises, and I support the staff getting raises. So I just want to cut through the chase, and you'll start seeing hee-haw and mourning, and I ain't going for that millage increase. I don't raise taxes. You hear it. And I'm not a tax raiser myself.
I'll say it again.
But they love you. They love public safety.
Commissioner DeSabatino.
Jan, was that figure based on 4 million?
Yes, so here's how I did it. I used it based upon the valuation that we used to create the recommended budget. Roughly, it was 4.1. I rounded it up, at 4.3, you'd get 0.12. I'm just trying to get round numbers right now, not specific. So I get to 0.12 mils, that gives you 4.3 million roughly. This is just rough.
I got it.
Originally, the millage rate in the general fund is 5.2942. That's what's in your recommended budget. That would bring it to 5.4142. On a straight $150,000 house, that would calculate to a new of $812. The original millage for general fund would be only $794, so it's right at $18 difference, right around $20.
Okay. And could you calculate that for the 3 million and 2 million?
We can give you that. I'd prefer
Okay,
not
I'm
to
just saying.
give guessing numbers.
We're not gonna calculate right now.
Okay. So,
Fingers are tired.
and just where I'm going with this, this is just
Options.
instant replay from last year, that when I speak with homeowners in South County, and when I go to homeowners meetings, I always throw out, would you pay $20 or $30 or $40 more a year where you live, which is probably, I would say, on an average, less affluent than over at District 5, hands up. Every one of them want to make sure that you're fully funded, because they know that public safety is highly important to them. So $20 to $40 a year. So I know how my other colleagues think, but that's the way I think.
All right, Commissioner Benak.
Okay, well, I think that I have heard from people that said, the cost of living has gone up significantly, 2.1%, where it's been 0.8%, so their taxes are going up. We're not saying it's our fault, because we're keeping the millage rate level. But for the first time in quite a while, their taxes are going to go up a little bit more significantly than they have in the past. So those folks, Robin, that are telling you they're okay with an additional $40 a month, that probably is already happening to them, whether with no change in this budget. I've had people say to me, when are you going to start applying the rollback rate?
Yeah, then you don't have a tax.
Because
increase.
I have people that are
Technically.
paying significantly more taxes than some people that might be in some lower cost neighborhoods, and they're not liking this fact that, so you have to know that this idea that it isn't uniformly that everybody says, this kind of reminds me of in 2007, I think it was, when the county property values were at record highs and the commission increased the millage rate. I've talked about that every time I've talked to, when I've been out talking to groups, saying, what made them do that? They had the highest values, the highest, but yet they raised the millage rate at that time.
Not me.
And I was like, wow, why did they do that? I'm very concerned about this idea. I get it that we've got to make tough choices, but I'm not so sure that I'm just willing to say that we're just going to keep increasing the taxes because, like you said, places like Sarasota aren't. They do things differently. They don't charge their unincorporated area the highest rate, they don't charge as high a rate as we do. That's why they're saying Longboat Key, they've got other taxes. We need to look at other ways to do this, not just continue to say, well, hey, we can increase taxes, so let's do it. No doubt we can. And Mike Bennett's here, and my question was rhetorical, but it was meaningful because are there ways to handle growth without just increasing taxes? We've got to consider that, And I know for the sheriff, it's very difficult. You're very, very personnel intensive. That's the nature of your game, protecting people. People want a sheriff deputy to show up when they call. I get that. I've been there. I get that. So that's the question. How do we work smarter and not necessarily just increase taxes? We got to keep working on it.
I would just like to remind my friends on the board that this is a budget meeting. We're discussing the sheriff's budget, not whether we're raising taxes, not raising taxes. That is a discussion that I'm sure we will have, but it is not for today's discussion. And I do know we all want to get home at a decent hour. As you all know, I got plans tonight, so let's keep on moving. Exactly. I've got plans, so come on, Commissioner Ball.
Now, real quick, I think we've pretty much decided what we're going to do with the sheriff's budget. We flagged it.
Yep, we decided that a half hour ago.
We red flagged it. I like that because I swear this is a biggie. But I do want to remind the commissioners, in 2011, I can remember having a conversation with one or two of you, and I won't mention who it was.
With me.
And about increasing the millage, and I think it was going to be $5. And because I had talked to the sheriff, to Stubbe then at that point, and I was running for office. And I can remember it was an adamant no. I would never vote to increase taxes. I said, it's only $5 a month. No. So it is a tough thing. It's not something I would ever consider. We need to figure out how to live within our means. And I think every department head and everyone that we deal with this budget would agree to that because we all live here too. And I can tell you, my residents would never be in favor of me voting to increase taxes, not real estate, because they already, look what just happened with the school. They already pay so much more than they had been, so.
But
Thank you.
They all voted to.
Commissioner DeSabatino, quickly, because
They
we're
all-
finishing up.
Sales tax.
The majority of the people voted to increase their taxes for school. I'm just pulling up, just so you know, a house that has.
You got Vanessa again this year?
Probably. She
Or
likes to
me.
pick at me. and
No,
say,
I didn't. A
this time.
$275,000 house. Their total taxes are less than $3,000 a year,
Must be nice.
Yeah, it must be.
and
I'm not even close to that.
but
It's 3
the
times.
county's portion is only $1,171.
The school board gets.
The
one
rest is school board, WCIND, the fire districts get a big chunk, and,
Still, that's still coming out of their paycheck.
Exactly.
No matter where it goes, so.
But I'm saying, there's a lot of government that one household is getting for $1,100 a year.
All right, Rick, thank you so much for
Hey, I
coming.
want to thank you all very much. Appreciate
Run
it, okay?
fast before
All right,
somebody
take
else
care.
asks a question. Run fast.
Get out quick.
No, he's got guns. He doesn't have to run anywhere.
Supervisor of Elections.
All right, Mr. Bennett, you're next and last.
Good job.
Yes, sir?
Good job.
I got to tell you,
We're worn out now.
Mr. Johnson, I like your idea. I think if you want somebody to control their budget,
Let 'em
you give them a
control.
number, tell them to manage it,
Right.
and I think you oversight, and that's the way to do it. And the reason I think I can talk about that, in the time that I've been here, we've had a 15%, closer, a little over 15% increase in the number of voters in Manatee County. And yet, for the entire time I've been supervisor of elections, since 2012, we have lowered the budget, and we're asking for less this year also. And we've been able to do that because we have not had to justify every single dollar. We didn't have to appease this one, didn't have to appease that one. I admit I've got probably the most unbelievable staff in town between Scott Farrington and Sharon. They have taught me so much about controlling expenses, and that's really where we're at this year. My budget meeting is real short, folks. I don't need more money than we had last year.
That was the question, wasn't it?
We already had said that publicly. You didn't have to come.
Oh, yeah. Why didn't you tell me? I could have gone home.
Charles wanted you here.
Well, the senator know I like seeing him, first of all. He gets to get on TV, but
I got to tell you, I like seeing you around 2:45. I didn't like seeing you right now, but go ahead.
Well, they knew, for the sake of the election coming up, and you know what came down from the federal government, the funds that's coming in for cyber issues. I just wanted you to explain to the public, you know, what that means. The election's coming up. You got enough precincts? Is that sufficient? Do you see any foreseen issues that may come up? Because you meet with the state supervisors, we don't.
Right.
You hear stuff that we don't hear.
Let me kind of give you all a quick rundown of what's going on. We originally thought that we might end up with a two-page, 17-inch ballot, 2 pages, both sides. If you would add those inches up, that's a 5'8" ballot. Okay? Well, Scott and Sharon have figured out how to get it down to 1 page, both sides on a 17-inch ballot. But that being said, we're going to face some of the longest lines, potentially, that we have faced since I certainly got elected, at least since the last Constitutional Revision Commission. With a number of amendments that are going to be on there, I'm encouraging everybody, and I would hope you all would encourage everybody you talk to. Everybody comes in front of you, please register for vote by mail.
I already did.
And get it done. I'm telling you, when they're sitting down looking at that ballot at home, it is so unbelievably confusing. We were confused even trying to write the language, okay, to make sure that it was, to getting the points across. It's very, very difficult. So you're going to have that issue. Are we going to have enough people? We think so. We've got a great staff. They're training them now. I spoke to new poll workers yesterday. We're on top of that. Then you get into the issue of cybersecurity. I'm sure you all read the paper. The federal government says, okay, they're going to send $19 million to Florida. That's wonderful. We were told we're going to get it. Unfortunately, they haven't told us how we're going to get it, what we're going to do with it, where we can spend it, what can we do. They have no idea what they're going to do with that $19 million. I'd say give it to the sheriff, to be honest with you. But I wish I could. But I think that we're in good shape. But you always have the potential of something going wacko. All of a sudden, everybody wants to show up at the polls. We could have a problem, okay? But with the early voting sites, we were lucky enough to secure the Public Utilities Building out on Cortez, Cortez in 57? 56, okay, which will be a great location for us. They've been extremely cooperative out there for the public utilities. So we think we'll have a good location there, and it'll be something we can handle for a long time. No, I think we're in pretty good shape. But again, unless I'm sadly mistaken and something else happens, we are watching for security, all kinds of security. We will probably work with the sheriff's office, let them know where every single precinct is. We will be looking for extra security at my office. But I think we're in pretty good shape all the way across on it.
And Senator, we will have the same number of precincts that we had in your previous election.
I am.
And the early voting, how many locations will you have?
We have 5.
5 locations. That's more than you had before.
That's exactly what we had
last
before.
time?
same number. But we expect those numbers to increase because we're hoping that the press will pick up on the fact. In fact, it was interesting because some of the people in my staff were doing a guest editorial hopefully this week that my headline basically is going to be, I'm predicting long lines. And I hope that scares enough people into signing up for vote by mail. I'm hoping it scares people into going down and voting early. We will be there. We are increasing the number of days that we are open for early voting to try to pick up a little of that. I think we stayed with the same hours, just added an additional 2 days to it to allow those people to get down and vote early.
Okay, see, that was worth it just for you coming saying, look for long lines.
I thought
so-
you just wanted to see me.
Well, I did. I
Oh,
wanted
okay,
to see you on TV, you know, so. Our conversation's protected on TV. We don't know what may be said behind closed doors.
There you go.
Commissioner Whitmore?
Just real quick, I never wanted to do vote by mail because I always wanted the sticker. I have switched to vote by mail.
Then you
No, I
sign.
wear election day. But I've been doing it for the last 2 years now, and it's great, but I don't get the sticker, so I actually go to the poll and tell them I've already voted and they give me one. Could you at least put them in the envelope?
You will have a sticker in your
Everybody?
envelope. I just got tired of you crying about it. I said, look, whatever we got to do, I don't care that it's going to cost us an extra $7,000 or $8,000. If it's something Commissioner wants, we're going to do it. So, yes, you will have a sticker on your envelope.
It's real important for, I've
It is,
never missed
and it's
an
important to a
election
lot of
since I was
people.
18.
You know, the other thing, so people will know.
He didn't say it'd be a sticker that said I voted.
We are going to have it on the vote by
Are we
mail
really?
ballot.
Are you
We'll
gonna
have
put
the
it-
sticker.
Thank
The
you.
other thing that we will be doing, which I think will help people, we're really encouraging people, if they're concerned about, you know, there's something, especially some of the people my age, okay, want to put it in the box.
That's what I was
Okay.
gonna ask my next question.
And so we are encouraging people to go by the early voting sites,
And-
have the ballot, put it in the box if they're
Because
uncomfortable.
a lot of people don't trust it by mail, and also if
do it at
there's,
the-
you may
their
want to say, I know you don't publicize it, but if they stick it in the mail and there's no stamp on it, it still comes to you.
I don't advertise
I
it, but
know.
yes, we still
Just
get it, and they can't forward it.
Right. It gets forwarded to his office.
I'm fine, Madam Chair. Thank you.
I don't see anyone else. Thank you for coming. I know you
Thank you,
were
Commissioners.
thoroughly entertained. Thank you
You
very
got it.
much.
Steve,
Thank
take
you
care.
for keeping
Mike,
your budget.
We really love the fact you keep your budget the same.
It's so cheap, she won't give me no more.
What we love about it.
Every dollar she saves, she gets 50 cents. No, she
Gives
wishes.
it to the sheriff.
All right, see nobody else on the board?
Are we done?
Happy birthday.